Good morning. Today is the 8th of July, the year is 2010. I'm Harry Ziegler, a volunteer at the Palm Springs Air Museum here in California. Part of our mission is to record and preserve the history of our country's military conflicts, especially World War II. As part of the Veterans History Project of the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., we conduct interviews of veterans and civilians who participated in those conflicts. Today I'm here at the museum with fellow volunteer David Quayles. We have the honor and privilege of interviewing Chief Warrant Officer for Angus Desveaux. I almost got that right. Angus was a pilot in Vietnam flying helicopters for the U.S. Army. We're going to talk to him about his career and other things that he did in his life. Nice to have you here, Angus.
Nice to be here.
If you would you please give us your full name and spell it?
Angus Blair Desveaux. Angus Blair Desveaux.
And would you explain that nationality a little bit?
That's a good question. I'm from Canada. I'm an immigrant here, a citizen since 1967. But the province that I was born in, Nova Scotia, has a fascination with that name. My father's name was Angus Desveaux also, and and both of his parents were French speakers. My father married an Irish lady called Mary Haley, and they named me Angus Desveaux.
So it's a family name, Angus.
Yes.
Is it?
Yes, I've named my son Angus, and he's named his son Angus.
Okay. So, you know about your father's parents at all? Your grandparents?
Yes.
On your father's side?
Yes.
And how did they get into Canada, or where they were the parents of your father? How did that happen?
They were born there. Both grandparents on both sides, my mother's side and my father's side, were born in Canada. And I'm not sure how far it goes back because in Nova Scotia, they didn't start keeping records till 1905. And the only records available at that time were the baptismal records associated with the church. And so anybody doing history projects beyond that are, looking at the church. Now there is a Acadian museum in near the area where I was born that also keeps track of all these folks, and also with the people that are in Louisiana, because not a lot, but a good portion of the people that lived in Nova Scotia were deported to Louisiana a number of years ago.
And the reason for that was?
Because the British conquered North America. Yes.
And Canada then kicked out the British kicked out the French. And
yes.
And when they went to New Orleans, what were they called as the French in New Orleans?
Acadians.
And were they the business people of New Orleans, or were
I don't have any idea of what they did in
or were they
Louisiana?
One of the groups in Louisiana were the bricklayers and the carpenters, and it was Acadians, and I forget the other name, but that history is still very popular down there.
I know that they made real good moonshine, but I don't know. Beyond that, I don't know.
Well, what was the attraction to Nova Scotia for the French? What brought them there?
They were explorers and traders, traders, and they were looking for new markets, and then they also worked very closely with the native population, both in Nova Scotia and through the rest of the North American area.
Was fishing part of their lifestyle, or was it mostly trapping and trading? And
I think it was mostly trading. They probably had some fishing skills and other things like that, but they were mostly wanting to trade, as did the British want to trade. And had a large company that exists, well, may or may not exist today, called the Hudson's Bay Company, big fur traders.
and that was French?
No, it was British.
British. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what's your first memory of your home, where you're living and your surroundings?
It's a coal mining town. My father was a coal miner.
And the town's name?
New Waterford.
And is it a coastal town or is it inland?
Yes, it's coastal.
Would it be on the east or north?
It would be on the, let's see, that would be the southwest side of Cape Breton Island,
Okay.
near Sydney, Nova Scotia.
Is it still
Big
a
port.
mining town?
Yes,
Still have coal?
yes.
And so, growing up as a son in a coal miner's town, were there other siblings in your family?
3 sisters,
Younger, older?
younger.
And their names?
Anne, Betty Lou, actually her name was Mary Elizabeth, and then Vivian.
Okay. And what was your house like? Can you remember whether it was...
Yes, well, we moved quite a bit. The first house we lived in was, my father built it, along with the help from his father, my grandfather, next to where they lived. And the only thing I remember about it is it did not have indoor plumbing. And then we moved into one of the company houses. The coal mining company, Dominion Steel and Coal, built a bunch of duplexes that they rented out and then eventually sold to the miners. And we moved into half of one of those, right next to where my mother's father and mother lived.
Were they
And-
in one of the duplexes also?
Yes, they owned the other half. And that did have indoor plumbing, which was a very good plus in the wintertime especially. Then we, after the war, my father was in the Army. He was the regimental sergeant major of a coast artillery battery. Yeah, or regiment, whatever the proper name is.
Yeah.
And after the war, he had struck up a friendship with the cook in the regiment, and who lived in Edmonton, Alberta. And my father decided to take the family and move out there. They had coal mines in Alberta at the time. So they moved out to Alberta. We did, me and my 2 sisters. The youngest, Vivian, wasn't born at that time. And we we stayed with my father's friend. And then we bought our own place, and then I attended school. And then my mother got antsy about living in Alberta and decided we need to go back to Nova Scotia. So we pulled up stakes again and took the 5-day train ride back to Nova Scotia. And as I went to school again, I stayed there till I was just about finished to grade 7.
So
yeah,
you were born in what year?
1937.
1937. And your first memories then were probably 3 or 4 years old, 5 years old or so.
Probably. I remember my father coming to the house in uniform and deciding we were going to go out to the beach. And he was going to teach me how to shoot a .22 rifle. And I remember the wind was blowing sand all over the place. And my mother's sandwiches tasted of sand. And I was all that fussy about firing a .22 rifle into the ocean there. And that's my first real memory of a family outing.
Was there sports at all that you were interested in as a kid? Something that you were interested in more than anything else? Do you remember much about how food, whether you had all the food you needed during the war? You know, you were pretty young, maybe 7 years old during the war. Do you remember anything about having enough food, not having enough food?
Well, it was rationing at the time. And
I mean, were you sent to the store to go get groceries
yes.
with the ration book and?
Yeah, and a list.
Do you remember the price of things at all?
No, I had any idea. The only thing I remember that caught my fancy was Kraft dinner.
The cheese?
Yeah, that beautiful golden color on the package of the cheese. And I finally talked my grandmother into buying it and cooking it for me. Unfortunately, she forgot the cheese. It tasted like milk-soaked noodles. Anyway, that's the only thing I remember. I remember it was 9 cents or 19 cents or something like that.
Was there much talk that you could remember about the war and the Germans and what it was like in Europe for the poor people over there? Do you remember any of those conversations?
There was no conversation about that particular, about the people over there. The only thing I remember was that the Shell Oil Company was advertising fly talks because a lot of people had no indoor plumbing, and flies were attracted to their place in the summertime. Anyway, and they were selling fly talks in some of the stores. I noticed they had great big posters advertising fly talks in the window, and on the head of each fly was Hitler or Tojo or Mussolini. That stood out in my mind.
And did your dad have full time in the artillery, or was he? I mean, he was in the army as
Yes.
an artillery officer, or not necessarily.
Regimental sergeant major.
A sergeant major, which was quite high for any enlisted man in either of the Canadian service.
That's as high as you can get.
That was it, and
In that particular
so
role.
he was certainly respected in his military career.
My father was respected in the military, and considering he was dealing with a bunch of coal miners, mostly uneducated, they greatly respected his knuckles. Because if he didn't do what he said, he used them.
Now, did they speak mostly French in your home, or did they spoke English?
Only my grandmother and grandfathers occasionally spoke French, but even they eventually, when I remember, I was like in my early teens, they had lost most of their proficiency. And it frightened me anyway. When I was just a kid, my grandmother took me to one of her coffee clutches with the rest of her French-speaking friends to show me off, the grandbaby and all that. And they started speaking French, back and forth, and I got so upset I started crying. Yeah.
Now, most kids in those days didn't have the luxury of hanging around and watching TV. They had jobs. Can you remember when you started getting little chores and things to do?
Oh, my dad had me working. We always had a garden. The frozen in the winter, which was my vacation time for gardening, or digging things up and weeding. I hated it with a passion. And around the house, my father, when we moved to Edmonton out when I was, like, say, 12, 13, he bought a house that was constructed during the wartime building phase, and it was sitting on a foundation, but the interior part of the foundation was not excavated. And the foundation itself was only 5 feet deep, and my father decided that we needed a basement in the house because the heater was upstairs in the living room, actually, a space heater. And so he
Was it coal-fired? The heater?
No, it was gas, natural gas. Edmonton had natural gas at that time. In fact, our refrigerator was natural gas too. Anyway, he decided to dig out the basement, and
You were the right height.
and also to carry the wheelbarrow,
Okay.
and because there's a lot of dirt there, and I would have to wander around the neighborhood. At that time, they were starting to tear out the old wooden sidewalks and put in concrete, and so the part between the houses and the fences and the sidewalk and the curb were generally they weren't properly graded. So I'd go around with my wheelbarrow, and if I found a hole there, I'd fill it with the dirt from my basement. So
That project got done and the furnace got put in the basement?
yes,
And
yeah.
did your dad do all that? Did he pipe
Yep.
it up into the?
Yep. He did all that and insulated the. I remember this. He insulated this old space heating stove, about 3 feet square, maybe less than that, with asbestos that he had to put on with his hands. I mean, like it was a paste. And he put it on the outside, asbestos. But that time there was a few scares about breathing asbestos. Here he was putting it on his.
All the pipes in our basement had asbestos on them in our basement furnace.
Yeah.
And never thought a thing about it.
No.
I remember watching them off with a hose, get the dirt off them. Now, you're in what town at this point?
Edmonton.
Edmonton.
Yeah.
Okay, and then, how old are you at this point?
We moved to Edmonton when I was, let's see, about 13.
Did your mom have some favorite foods she liked to make, dinners that the family particularly liked over other things? I mean, the Brits were really big on mutton and things like that.
No.
The French.
We were still on a pretty restricted diet. My father was, when we came back to Edmonton, the coal mines had started shutting him down because of the natural gas. So he couldn't find a job at which he was expert, which was shot fire, which meant that he set off the dynamite, black powder, it wasn't dynamite, explosions in the mine to blast the coal from the face of the mine. And so he couldn't find a job there. He ended up working in a department store in the, and then eventually at the refinery, where he was hired to work as a security officer, and then eventually the manager. Then he got out of that and eventually worked for Imperial Oil, which was which is Standard Oil, as a tradesman. Pipe fitter, which paid a lot more money. But up to that time, we weren't having anything really favorite that my mother would cook. It's whatever we could afford at the time.
A lot of times it's meat and potatoes, that type of diet. I don't know, the growing season is probably pretty short in upper Canada and Nova Scotia, so I'm not sure what all you would be able to grow in that.
Potatoes.
A lot of potatoes, maybe.
Carrots, cold
Yeah.
weather vegetables,
Yeah.
cucumbers, carrots, peas, green beans. We used to have a lot of fun raiding our neighbors' gardens.
Did you have any duties when you had the outhouses?
Make sure we had plenty of catalogs available.
It was, it was the catalog was what it was. I understand.
You don't understand, huh?
No, I understand.
Okay.
And so, is there much elation or talk when the war in Europe and the war in the Pacific ends?
Yeah, kind of a mini riot there in New Waterford and decided to open the liquor stores again. They closed the liquor stores during the wartime. I don't know whether it was to keep the people under control or they just diverted all the alcohol into military use of some kind. So it was interesting. I did get to go in a coal mine one time when I was a young Boy Scout or maybe Cub Scout, whatever. And we went down, and the coal mines in that area were not vertical. They were angled about at the same slope as the ocean, because they went under the ocean, and they were the transportation was a cart, which was lowered and raised by a steam engine, little railroad type carts, and with using gravity and then a steam engine to pull them back up, both people and the coal. And when they took us, the scouts down there, and we all got in a little cart, and we were starting our way down, and then one of the miners said, "No, we have an overhead concrete wall and ceiling here. As soon as we run out of concrete wall and ceiling, you have to lay down, because sometimes the wooden beams across the opening fail and drop down, and you'll liable to get a big headache if that kind of got my attention." I was maybe 12 years old or 13, something like that. And then finally they took us down. We had the lights, the battery, and the light hat with the light on and all that. And then we stopped at one of the levels, not all the way at the bottom.
Was it an electric light or carbide?
I don't know. It was run by a battery that you carried.
Okay, it was like.
Yeah. And so horizontally, we walked up to the face of the mine. We went through a couple of doorways, got to the face of the mine, and the seams of coal in that area were only about 4 or 5 feet tall. So short men were the preferred coal people. But when you get up to the face, sometimes it even was less than that. We get up there, and I was watching them working, and they were on their hands and knees with huge, they call it pan shovels, loading these little carts with coal.
Keep talking.
And you probably heard that.
Let's stop for a minute.
So
Yeah.
I was trying to get your attention. I saw that with him.
Okay, we're back in action. And Angus, where did we leave off?
I don't remember.
Carts.
Huh?
The carts.
The cart's down in the mine. You
Oh.
were ducking your heads.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Did you get that on the desk?
Well, we got down to the point where you went through a couple of doors,
Yeah.
and so let's go from there.
Okay. So we walked up to the face of the mine where they were working with their helmet and lights on. And when I got up there, they were loading coal by hand into these small railroad cars. And they were on their knees at the face of the mine, the coal miners. And in the dust, breathing in that cold dust from the explosion, and on their knees on a hard surface with no knee pads or anything like that I could see, in a warm temperature at least. And right about then I decided I didn't want to be a coal miner.
And these guys did that every day, all day.
Every day, 6 days a week.
And
When they changed shifts, it was 7 days a week.
was it a safe? I mean, were they having accidents a lot in the mines in those days?
Accidents, explosions, problems, always problems.
Always. And your dad survived all that.
Oh yeah.
And he was a, what do you call it, flash?
Shot fired.
Shot fire. And so, as a Boy Scout, they backed you out of the mine, and
It convinced me.
yeah, you didn't want to be a
I should
miner.
extend my education a little.
And what grade now are you in school?
7.
7th grade, or 7 years old?
No, 7th grade.
7th grade. And have you developed any interest in subjects at that time? Have you picking on math or biology or anything? You remember whether the school was challenging or whether it was just kind of kept you awake?
It was annoyed maybe, but not awake. It was a Catholic school, and that school was almost equally divided between French-speaking students only and English-speaking students, although they kind of integrated them after grade 6 or something like that. There was no mixed classes of male, female in that school. And we were taught by nuns and civilian females. I don't remember any male teachers in that school system at the time until I came to Edmonton. And it was different.
Did in your schooling, did they do anything like if there was going to be a bombing and you'd have to run out of school and go to a
Fire drill?
fire drill, that type of thing?
Yeah, they had a fire drill there. They used a hand wringing, clapper type of thing. The ones that when recess was on, recess was off. Come in and sit down at your desk or go out. That was the only communication they had, mass communication they had.
So they line you all up and march you out the door and that type of thing, or did you just scramble?
I don't really remember how it worked. The nuns were very rigorous about maintaining discipline, and so I imagine they marched us out anytime that there was any kind of a drill. And
Were you getting any kind of organized sports, at this point?
no, we didn't have a gym, and our schoolyard wasn't level, so there was no place to put any kind of a playing field, soccer or football or anything like that. And about 5 months of the year, 4 months, it was covered in snow that could be anywhere from a foot to 5 foot deep. A lot of snowball fights. That's about all.
So what happens after that? Is your family settled a little bit now, or are they getting ready to move again?
They get moved, and that same year we moved out to Edmonton again.
Back to Edmonton.
Yeah.
And what are you able to keep up with your schooling? I mean, you can transfer from.
It was a little difficult at first. The level of education. I wasn't used to studying or doing any homework. When I got even at grade 7, I never had any trouble with passing any kind of written test or whatever, and they never really followed up with homework. I really liked reading a lot and read a lot because there was no television. And when I got to Edmonton, that they had a more sophisticated school system there with a gym and level playing field actually. You could play soccer or football or whatever, and organized sports, but not really organized. They didn't have a school team. That didn't happen until I got to the main high school, where they had organized sports that actually competed with schools outside of the school itself.
Did you get into one of those sports?
No,
Did you
no.
play any kind of a musical instrument?
I tried to join the school band and to play the trumpet for not any particular good reason. I think one of the movies I saw at the time inspired me to do it. I don't remember. This is like 1954, 53, or 52. Right in that time frame, Korea was still going on. I don't remember. I don't remember what it was. I think it was a movie. Anyway, it didn't work out too well. I wasn't really good at practicing since I didn't have any place to practice but at home. And with a trumpet, it makes your presence well known if you start practicing. And it didn't inspire me to do anything like that.
Now, your sisters are tracking along behind you. Are they pretty much doing chores at home, or are they getting involved in having jobs like around in the store or anything?
No.
So they have their chores at home, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, my mother is a stay-at-home mom, registered nurse, but they were still pretty young, 12, 11, 10, 11, 12, and then younger.
Did the
10.
Korean War leave much of an impression on anyone? Was it much of interest in your neighborhood where you lived?
Yeah, we had Canadian soldiers in Korea.
Yeah, they were part of the UN force.
Yes, exactly.
And so they were keeping track of that war.
Yeah, you bet. And they were recruiting. In fact, I was recruited into a subsidiary cadet organization belonging to a reserve armored car regiment, the 19th Armored Car. And I think they were taking kids as young as 13, and you go to the once a week or once a month, I can't remember what the frequency was, and they would teach you how to field strip one of the weapons that they were using at the time, and you actually could shoot in the range downstairs. They had a indoor firing range with a Lee Enfield 303 rifle, rebarreled for a .22, so you wouldn't blow the place apart. And then we went out to the range, and we had with the armored cars. These were stag hounds with no heaters in the wintertime, and there were 40 millimeter guns on them, I think. Maybe there was 60 millimeter guns, but they never fired those. They didn't even bring the breech mechanism with them. But we did fire the Browning machine guns that the co-driver manned, and then but that was it. It was interesting because I was at the back of the line there, and I didn't get to fire that machine gun till after sundown, and I wasn't paying a lot of attention, and so the tank commander got me in there and put me in the seat and said, "Downrange is that way, shoot that way." So it was like this, I was looking at the port, and I fired off a burst and hit the bunker line just in front of me, and it was all tracers. This thing is a fast firing weapon. Tracers, a big stream of tracers went ricocheting into the air. It was pretty spectacular, and of course it deafened me too. That was my first time with a military weapon of any significance.
So you're getting up then where you're almost finishing high school, and you do that in that same school? You finish there, or do you move again?
No, we moved from the one in St. Clair's to separate high school, it was called. In Alberta, they had two school systems. They had the public school system, and they had the separate school system, both supported by your real estate taxes. And so you could identify which school system you wanted to support with that portion of your property taxes you paid to the government, and they would funnel that percentage of your to that particular school system. So they were fairly well funded, although they didn't get the same amount as the public school system. They had a lot of people that worked for basically, all the religious folks, the nuns and priests and so forth. They weren't paid a lot of salary, and so they were able to be very efficient in their operation of the schools, and very disciplined. They didn't have the range of subjects that the public school folks did, but they were able to matriculate their high school students out of high school after 12 years school, so that they could they didn't have to do all the basic first year subjects at the college university. So that was quite a feat for these folks. They were very good at it. They had, they did have some organized sports, basketball and baseball. I don't think they had baseball, football. That's about all I really remember. Hockey, maybe.
So where did you actually finish high school?
St. Joseph's separate high school, yeah.
Separate high school.
Yeah.
Did they teach trades in those schools?
Yes, they did.
And had you picked a trade at all, or were you?
I was interested in small gas engines, since the only transportation I had was the bicycle.
That was one of the questions I was going to ask you. Was there a car ever in your family?
Yes, actually, my uncle gave me one when I was still in high school. He was a taxi driver, and he had a 1938 Buick that he gave me.
That had to be a pretty big car.
Yes. It was great, actually.
You remember what gas cost in those days?
I don't know, maybe about 25 cents a gallon or less. There was maybe 30.
So how were you earning any money to buy gasoline for your car?
Oh, that's a good question. I used to have to bum the money off my mother to pay for gas and put in the car to go to school.
Did they have such a thing as automobile insurance in those days?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So the car was yours and it was insured.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah, I didn't know what it was when
I'm not even sure it was properly registered. I was a kid, and I didn't understand the risks involved.
So what happens
in
after
driving.
high school, Angus?
Well, when I was in high school, the Royal Canadian Air Force were also recruiting, and they had a reservist program that allowed you to join as young as 16, and you had to attend summer camp, and they actually paid you $100 a month, and so it was lasted nearly 6 weeks, if I remember correctly, and so that just ate up all your summertime, but it got maybe 8 weeks. Anyway, it was good, and I went to. They taught me to be an instrument technician, and so then that was between my 11th and 12th year of high school. So in the 12th year, I had to go to attend with the reserve unit, which was a B-25 unit. I had kind of drills monthly with them. They were B-25s.
And can you remember whether they were air-driven or electrical instruments or both?
The what?
The instruments, were they air-driven or electrical?
Everything.
Everything was
Yeah.
air-driven.
No, some of the gyros were all electric.
Mhm.
No, they were vacuum. You're right.
Yeah.
The only thing that were the temperature gauges and so forth that were.
So you got
electrical.
both the
Yeah.
pneumatic side of it and you got the electrical side of it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And so let's get you up through high school.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a decision time for a lot of guys.
Well, yeah. That
And
was.
So what happens when you graduate from high school?
I immediately joined active duty to go to flight school.
And what got you interested in aviation? How did that interest come about?
Because I was a enlisted reservist in the Air Force. So I joined the Air Force when I was 16 as a reservist, drilled with the 418 B-20 medium bomber squadron as an instrument technician. The next summer I had to attend school again to increase my technical knowledge, my trade. And the Air Force, I noticed, were advertising in a newspaper for pilots, 17 to 25. And I just fit right in there, so I talked to our squadron leader and asked him for a recommendation. He said, "You bet, I'd be happy to get rid of I'd be happy to help you out." And so he did, and they shipped me off to London, Ontario, to the personnel selection unit there, and where they did all kinds of tests, mostly psychological, and then off to the basic 3-month basic aircrew training.
So let me ask,
Yeah.
you are now on active duty,
Yes.
and you're in the Canadian Air Force on active duty,
Yeah.
going to what we call pre-flight
Yes.
training.
Yes.
And you passed everything, all the tests to become a Canadian aviator.
Yes.
And the Canadian, would it be the Air Force, Canadian Air Force?
Royal Canadian Air
Royal
Force.
Canadian, RAF.
RCAF.
RCAF, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what do you remember about basic at all?
Well, it was school subjects associated with the mathematics and the understanding of aircraft operation, but it mostly was like, probably your first or second year of college type of subjects. No literature or anything like that, but mostly just.
But you would have aircraft engines, engineering, navigation.
No, it was mostly more basic than that, really.
Really?
Yeah, because they were picking people really young, and they were obligated to recruit French-speaking students, aviators, pilots too. They had a education issue. They had to not only learn how to speak English, but they also had to bring their education level up. So they just shipped everybody to this 3-month school.
Okay.
And they taught you how to, stand at attention and march and stuff like that.
Did they give you a rifle to carry around at all?
No.
Or how about a book bag? Did you carry a little book bag around?
No, I don't remember what I carried. I don't remember what it was.
We had book bags, and up book bags too.
I don't know if the Canadian Air Force could afford book bags. We'll see.
So 3 months of basic training, and then you go to what, flight training then?
Flight training school in Claresholm, Alberta, which is in southern Alberta between Calgary and Lethbridge, about 80 miles from the border of the United States. And it sits about 25 miles east of the Rockies, the foothills of the Rockies. Triangular shaped parallel runways. And
the basic trainer would have been what?
They were experimenting at the time, and they had our class do 15 hours in a Chipmunk. I don't know if you know what a Chipmunk
No
is.
idea.
Okay. It's a tandem 2-seat with an inverted inline 4-cylinder engine of British design. Inverted inline. The propeller hub used to fall off occasionally. Propeller and all, of course. A conventional gear.
Fixed.
Yeah, a little skittish on takeoff.
High or low wing?
I found.
High wing?
Oh no, it's low wing. Excellent aerobatic airplane. Really light to the touch. Spun okay. Although the cowling shook so badly it scared the devil out of you the first time.
Then you said besides the Chipmunk, then you had training in another one?
T6 Harvard.
AT-6?
Yeah.
And that was considered your basic trainer also?
Yes.
And to finish and get through this, you're yet to be, when you're all through, is it a commissioning that you get? Are you commissioned an officer?
Yes.
And is it from this school, or is there another school after this before you're?
There's another step, yes.
Okay, so
Advanced.
you're still a cadet? Is that a term, or were you enlisted?
No, I was a pilot officer on graduation from flight training school.
Pilot officer.
Yes, which is a second lieutenant's rank.
So you can get that after you finish your chipmunk
You
and
could
AT-6?
at that time, yes.
And you could become a pilot
Yeah,
officer?
that was like 9 months of school, flying training.
Now, would you have instrument flying and those
We had-
type of things,
we had everything.
aerobatics, formation? Did you
All-
get
all the
gunnery?
above.
Did you get the 30 cal in the AT-6 where you did gunnery?
No
Okay.
gunnery. I was it for the advanced school. But
Okay.
we did learn. I thought really there was really good instruction with respect to the instrument training. It was a basic training, and then for basic instruments, and then advanced where you did navigation. The basic was if I remember correctly, that the check ride was a spin under the hood, which in that aircraft, if you've ever flown, you remember, you have to shut the engine down if you spin the aircraft, because the fuel will pool in the supercharger, and when you crack open the throttle again, you could blow it up. So you had to cage all your gyros, and so your needle ball airspeed and compass, and then shut the engine down. Open up the throttle to 12 inches manifold pressure, so that there'd be air circulating through the engine, because the propeller, no fuel would pool in the fuel would pool in the supercharger, and then spin. So how do you recover from a spin on needle ball airspeed? Well, you step on the ball, right? Step on the ball, when that needle starts to move, you stop spinning. When your airspeed stops increasing, you're level. And then you continue on with whatever else they wanted you to do.
So that was your test from, did you do that in the
That's
chip?
basic.
Did you do that in the chipmunk?
No. T6.
T6.
Harvard.
Okay. The term Harvard I'm not familiar with.
It was during World War II, there was a big demand for training Allied forces pilots, and the Battle of Britain was still ongoing, so they shipped a lot of the British pilots and the French and whoever was left over to Canada for training, including some Americans that came up and joined. And so I can't remember who manufactures it down here, they authorized Canadian Car and Foundry to build the AT-6. And I don't remember who Harvard is, but he's the one that they put the name on. I don't know whether he's the president of Canadian Car and Foundry, or
Yeah.
the chief of staff of the Air Force, or whatever. But anyway, that's what they named
Came
it.
of Harvard, huh?
Yeah.
And so you're off to you get through your training, you become a pilot officer, which is a second lieutenant,
Yes.
and the Chipmunk and the AT-6 are your planes that you've flown. Okay, so then what happens after you become a pilot officer?
You're shipped to the next school, which is advanced training, T-33s.
So you go to jets,
Yes.
and that would be for how long?
4 months.
Did you fly any of the F-80s, or
No.
just the two-seater?
They never had any. All they had was T-33s, They didn't have the F-80.
I can remember, I thought that was the most complicated airplane I'd ever been in when I first flew it. Did you have the manual oxygen regulators?
No.
That you had to keep increasing
No.
as you went up in altitude?
No, it was all automatic.
We have the manual and the automatic fuel system both. You had two separate fuel systems?
No. We had tip tanks,
Yeah?
and then we had center tank and two wing tanks. So we had there was 4 switches for the fuel, and you had to manage your fuel like that. You always had to have the center tank on, or else the engine would stop. And then you fed it from either the wing tanks or the tip tanks. And if you're going on if you have any load in the tip tanks, you want to feed from the tip tanks first, so that you can do twisting maneuvers without bending the wings. With a full tip tank, and you'll remember that the ailerons are boosted in the T-33, the only thing that is boosted, although that's spring-loaded for the elevators. A sharp break with the loaded tip tanks, you'd end up with wings a little bit twisted.
So that's a 4-month school, and is it considered like your operational training? Or is it's another base in another? You're not in a squadron yet.
Yeah.
You're in.
It's not operational.
You're just more advanced training.
Yep.
And so, how many hours did you have before you went into T-33s?
180 or so.
And then
I was held over an extra 2 weeks, or whatever, 3 weeks, and because of the class sizes and so forth. And so I got a little extra time sightseeing around southern Alberta.
And so, in the 4 months in T-33s, how many more hours would you have accumulated?
90.
Okay. And I remember we had French students in the T-6s at Pensacola.
Yeah.
They were in America going to school also.
Yeah.
So was that an opportunity or an option that you might have had?
For the Harvards, Chipmunks, we had French, Turkish, British, Danish, I think. Not too many though, but those were the 3 main groups that we were training all the way through. And after I graduated from advanced training, German. I started training German pilots again, ex-Luftwaffe pilots mostly. Who didn't lead a lot of training.
Yeah. So
this is all NATO stuff,
You're getting up close to 250 hours, which is quite good. And then do you go to an operational squadron?
Yes. Now there's another school.
Oh, another one.
Like, say if you're going to go to the fighter squadron or an operational squadron, there's another school you go to. Well, our class at that time, they were ramping up training for all of the air crew, and down the road from us in Winnipeg, I was in McDonald, Manitoba, was the navigator training school. And you remember they're training navigators and radio officers and backseat guys for the interceptors and something else in there. Anyway, they shipped their whole class to Winnipeg. Which was much to my dismay.
Yeah, so what did you end up in? What was yours?
C-45s and C-47s and B-25s, yeah.
So was that were you instructing, or you were
Taxi driving.
taking guys up and training them?
Taxi driving. They
Yeah.
had their own, the navigators had their own instructors. All you were given was
You were just taxi driver, I understand.
control point and a triangle to fly,
Yeah. Day and night?
day and night.
Did they do any practice bombing with them? Did they have bombardiers?
No,
No.
no.
So, did they do any intercept type work?
The
Yeah.
B-25 folks did, yeah.
Uh-huh. So you flew C-45s, B-25s, and what was the third one?
C-47.
C-47. That's kind of interesting, actually, to go through all those three airplanes. You know,
Yeah.
how long did you do that?
Oh, let's see, another 3.5, 4 years.
That built up a lot of time.
Yeah.
So by the time you were through with that, with all that
About
multi-engine,
2,500 hours, yeah.
yeah, 2,500. And have you
Maybe not quite that much.
you have a girlfriend by now, or a wife, or anything?
I'd married, yeah,
And when did you get married?
in 1958.
58. And were you flying with the B-25s in that group at the time?
Yeah, I was
How'd-
mostly flying C-47s and C-45s, yeah.
How'd you meet your wife?
And at a high school dance when I was going to high school.
So she was and you married her later.
Yes.
And so did that union produce children very quickly, or did?
Maybe a year and a half or so. 2 years. No, a year and a half.
And what rank are you after getting at the time you're married?
First lieutenant.
First lieutenant. And is there a difference in flight pay? Do you get flight pay besides regular pay?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you're getting flight pay. And can you afford a car these days?
Oh, yes.
What kind of wheels do you run around on? Can you remember?
Well, when I was still single, I had bought an MGA,
Okay.
my still sports car.
Yeah, yeah.
As it approached winter, the canvas top and the lousy heater got me thinking.
And those Bosch carburetors in them weren't that good either.
Yeah, maybe I should. I got something else. I don't know. It was a Buick. Straight 8.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
Straight 8. That would have been another big one.
Yeah. It was an older 51 model, I think.
Are you living in military quarters?
No.
So you're living off base?
Yeah.
You rent a house,
An apartment.
an apartment,
Yeah.
and you have, did you say 2 children?
No.
One.
None.
None.
None in Winnipeg. We didn't. We were there about nearly a year and a half before Joyce, got pregnant. We decided to move back to Edmonton, where our families were, and so we did.
Oh, and then did you get out of the service?
Yes.
So you got out.
Yeah. The Air Force had a 5-year, what do they call it? A temporary commissioning program that everybody was involved in that time. 1 year, and they getting selected for a permanent commission was very rigorous.
Mm-hmm. And so you're out, and you've moved to another location where your families and everyone are.
Yeah,
I'm
Edmonton.
assuming your 2 sisters are still at home with your mother and dad.
Yeah, my 3 sisters. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. There was a third one came.
I don't think Vivian had gotten married yet. No, shortly thereafter, though. Yeah.
And what do you select to do? What becomes your occupation or business?
I was actually aviation. I really disliked flying multi-engine mission type. It was so I had no interest in flying with the airlines, although there was only one in Canada, Trans-Canada Airlines at the time. I had no interest in aviation. I found it kind of boring, and so I decided I could sell things, and I went to work for an American company called the Diversity Corporation.
I'm going to change tape. Okay, we're back in action.
Okay.
And so you become a salesperson.
Yes, a soap salesman, commercial cleaning products for hospitals and schools and people that have automatic dishwashing equipment and that kind of stuff.
And is that
Gary's and, you know.
is that something that you found you liked, or did you?
Yeah, I liked the technical part of it in particular. I found out I wasn't the world's greatest salesman.
And that usually means you change occupations.
Yeah. After working for them for a while, I said maybe flying was not so bad after all, and that I would go back to so I looked around in Canada, and you know, they had bush pilots, but the aircraft that these guys were flying out in, you know, 40 below weather and snow, you know, 4 feet deep, wasn't the kind of thing that I thought would be would make me feel comfortable. So I thought, well, why don't I just get a job that keeps you very close to your work, and you don't have to go cross country, and so I thought, well, I can be a crop duster, because we have huge farming areas, and I had seen somebody working or read something about it, so I started investigating. I found there was a school in Minden, Nevada, which is 80 miles south of Reno, maybe 60 miles south of Reno, that were teaching you how to be a crop duster. So I signed up for that school and came down to Minden, Nevada, and went to the crop dusting school. They didn't teach you a lot, but it's hard to do. I mean, you know, but they did get you thinking about avoiding hitting the ground a lot. Anyway, I came back to Canada, and I started calling all of the licensed crop dusting outfits, and finally made a connection with one guy in Saskatchewan, and he said, "Yeah, I'm looking for somebody that, you know, had some training and, you know, a lot of experience." And he said, "Yeah, good, you know, so it sounded like we got a deal here." He said, so I said, "Great. When do you want me to show up?" He said, "Oh, about August, September." This was May. Gee, that's an awful short season, you know. Just shortly after that, it starts snowing.
Yeah.
So it's weed control mostly. And when I was down there, I realized there was a big industry in crop dusting in this country.
Huge.
So I'll come down and see if I can. So I came down, and I got my aunt, who was living in Redondo Beach, to sponsor me and my wife and family to come down here. And then I went to school in the same school again, got my commercial pilot's license. I had a Canadian commercial pilot's license at that time, but it wasn't transferable in the United States. So I had to you know, get a U.S. commercial license. No big chore, just expensive. And so then while I was at the school again getting my commercial license, one of the other guys approached me, and he said, "You want to have breakfast?" I said, "Yeah." So he had a camper. This was like, you know, in the early 60s. I said, yeah, sure. Because I was, you know, had to drive into town and go to a restaurant or eat whatever I had with me. And he says, "You know, my partner that was going to share gas expenses when we were going to hit the road, he got involved in gambling and lost all his money." So he can't come with me. He says, "Do you want to, you know, partner up and we'll go hit the road and see if we can find a job crop dusting?" And I said, "Yeah, sounded like a good deal to me." Got, you know, a camper, and so I left my car there for his ex-partner, and Harry Cox and I went back to Hermosa Beach and arranged things, and then we hit the road. And we ended up in Pecos, Texas, Flatbrook. I don't think we had enough money to buy gas to go home. But the season, this was in June, and the season hadn't quite started yet. July 4th was when things really started popping. And they said, we talked to the local crop dusters, and it was some big outfits. They said, stick around. We'll put you to work. And so I did. And while we were waiting there, another crop duster from another area there come up and interviewed us both and hired me. And I was, and I went to work for him in Balmorhea, Texas, West Texas. And he had rebuilt this Pawnee, a Piper-built ag aircraft, single engine, 150 horsepower, with a 120-gallon tank, but mostly used for dusting. And we did both dusting and spraying, which was interesting. And I was, I was doing pretty good with him. And one time I was getting low on fuel, and so I called him up and I said, I need to get the fuel truck over here. I need to get some fuel. He said, let me take a look. And the aircraft at the Pawnee had a little door where you could look inside at the fuel tank. And so he looks at the fuel tank directly, and he's, it's triangular shaped. And so it's got about that much fuel in it. He says, oh, you got enough fuel there for another load, because they're on break now or something. I don't remember what his excuse was. Well, I guess my boss knows what he's talking about. It was liquid, fortunately. And so I went out there and I made a couple of swats, and on my pull-up, my last swat, the engine quit. I still had about 30 gallons of liquid left. Gee, I think I ran out of fuel. I had about maybe 50 to 100 feet in the air. So I dumped the load of chemical I had, and then landed in this plowed field. Yeah, it was pretty well graded though, so it wasn't a problem. So I just sat there for a few seconds and opened the windows and waited. And then about 5 minutes later, the truck comes up. They get the hose out from the 55-gallon drum where they keep the fuel in, and start pumping fuel. No words were exchanged. Then they fueled it up, and I fired up and flew it to the field. And I remember that about the field. But it was crop dusting. Crop dusting was fun. Crop spraying was not fun. You got a lot more drag with the sprayer.
Yeah.
And the duster, it's Ventura, you suck the dust out. So there's no except for the windmill in the front that breaks up the lumps. There's no mechanical connection to get rid of the dust. It just is sucked out of the airplane. So that was fun. Unfortunately, you have to be very careful that you're loading. And I found out one time I got a little overzealous about filling up the hopper with the dust. And when I took off, it was just a dirt road that we were operating off of. But more than halfway, I was committed to taking off. And the aircraft wasn't responding really well, but it eventually lifted off. But then I got in a ground effect. It was off the ground, but it wasn't going anywhere. So I immediately pulled the hopper handle and started dusting this strip. Well, it didn't, it takes a while for it to start sucking that stuff out at any great volume. So at the end of the strip is this farmer's yard. The guys were working, and he had a house and a barn and a wire stretched between the house and the barn. And so I had to fly between the house and the barn under the wire. with a big stream of dust coming out. So I don't know how many chickens I killed, but I can imagine I scared a few of them at least. It taught me a valuable lesson about loading my aircraft.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I can remember going through Arkansas, looking at an airplane, and the guys were out, but they were seeding with rice for the ducks,
Yeah.
for duck season. And they covered the car. I mean, man, they went over the top of the car, and I couldn't believe how much seed was coming out of those little
Yeah.
hoppers. So, where's your wife and family at this point?
They had come down and joined me in Belmarie, Texas.
And-
There wasn't any place to rent, so we had to share with these silver miners who were operating in Mexico. I don't know really what they were doing. They were never home, but we were.
Well, they have right over the border. There's some big silver mines in
Yeah.
Mexico.
Yeah.
And I had a buddy who used to fly down there twice a week, pick up the silver and bring it back to the smelters. You know, so your wife and how many kids now?
Just one.
One child. You're in Texas. You're crop dusting. How long does that last?
Well, about a month or less later, I was ferrying back from Pecos down to Balmorhea, and the engine started to expire on me. I had plenty of fuel. It didn't quit completely, but lost power. And I got trapped. I was only about 200 or 300 feet anyway. And I got trapped inside of a field with large wires surrounding the whole field. And I thought I was going to have to land where cotton or whatever was planted there. I have to land in that. And just about 50 feet above the ground, here's a road right in front of me. So I land on the road, and then I walk up to the farmhouse and call up Ray Quinn, if I can remember his name. Ray, I'm at so and so and so and so. I got an engine problem here. You want to come and fix it? So Ray, about half an hour later, Ray shows up. Meanwhile, the farmer, he had me some coffee and maybe some biscuits or something. Really nice folks. And Ray shows up with some kind of mixture to loosen the valves. Anyway, he pulls the prop through backwards a couple times. Oh yeah, that's all right. Ray's an interesting guy.
Yeah.
And he says, "Oh, you I think that one of the cylinders swallowed a valve." I said, "Oh, really?" Hope I didn't get indigestion. but so he started up the engine. He got the engine started. So then he shuts the engine down. And we talked more. He says, "You want to fly this thing back?" I said, "No, Ray. I think I'm going to let you do that. I'll take your truck back." So I did.
He flew it back.
Yeah,
Okay.
on 3 cylinders. He was something else. He was a mechanic in the Air Force during World War II, and then when he got into the Air Force, he got a flying license. But in that area, they were using V12 engines for irrigation pump work. They had, 12-inch irrigation pump,
Mhm.
all that cotton and stuff they were growing down in that area. They had those. They were run by natural gas, and he would overhaul the engines when they needed to be overhauled, or fix them when they needed to be fixed. And so that was his prime occupation besides being a crop duster. And so,
He's pretty good with them then.
yeah.
Sounds to me like you might have changed your mind a little bit about keeping that job, or did you stay there?
Well, after that first time, okay, So he works on the engine, orders parts, and in the meantime, I'm flying an Aranca. You know what Aranca is, don't you? with the back seat converted to a hopper. So doesn't have quite the good flying characteristics of a Pawnee. In fact,
Let's take a break.
Yeah.
Okay, let's pick up where we left off.
Okay. Harry's giving me. Okay. I was in West Texas crop dusting.
Oh, is that what you were talking about? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, an Aranca you were talking about?
Pardon?
An Aranca? you were-
Yeah, that's right. While my other aircraft was getting fixed, or the engine was getting fixed, I was flying an Aranca, which I didn't really like too much. You know, I could only dust with it, which was beneficial because it's better. It's easier to dust than it is to spray.
Mhm.
You can carry a bigger load. I didn't really appreciate dusting to start with because you had to be looking behind you all the time, because the density of the cloud that you put out is very important. If it's really thin, you're not properly treating the crop. If it's too much, then you're going to streak and probably kill some of the crops. You have to be looking behind you. I couldn't believe it when he told me. So how do you, what does that hopper handle have decrements on it so you can put it at a certain? He said no. He said, well, I said, how do you tell when you're putting out the right amount? So you look behind you. So we're looking behind us, and Ray, one of my first jobs, we get out there in the morning, it's nearly dead calm. So I start doing some swats, but the cloud just sitting there, and no problem. When you pull up, you can see where you've been. But here comes Ray, going in the opposite direction. Crop dusting too. I said, Ray, we could. No, never happened. Oh, okay. Anyway, they finally gets the engine on the other Pawnee fixed, and he test flies it and runs it. And said, "Do you want it? You better test fly this thing." And okay, so I test fly it, look at all the engine instruments and so forth. Felt pretty good, plenty of power. Flew around a little bit, didn't overheat. Okay, he got it. He's replaced the jug, and that's probably the only thing he really could do. But that was as far as he went. Anyway, so he said, okay, time to go to work. So he loads up dust this time. And we're in our runway, a dirt road, is bordered on three sides by wires, which have another telephone wire strung midway, so you couldn't go underneath them. You had to go over. So they loaded up my aircraft up with dust and pour the coal to it, and away I go. Get off the runway, no problem. Plenty of power. Just to clear the telephone with the lines, and the thing quits. Doesn't quit. It swallows another valve. And I've got dust on board, and I pull the hopper handle and to try and lighten the load, because the fuel I'm going to land in is cultivated. And I'm not exactly lined up with the roads either. So I went to the field. This time I'm going to have to land it. There's no way I can coast. So I landed, and it doesn't turn over or anything. So it's really, I was very lucky. So Ray has seen what happens, and so he comes over with the pickup truck, and he doesn't say anything. He gets at the truck, and he's got a shovel in his hand in the back. He pulls out the back and starts digging in the hopper and throwing that chemical out on the guy's ground. Then he cranks it up and flies it up. He didn't even ask me that time. There's no point. There's no way it's going to fly. Well, that afternoon, my other buddy, he had a couple of engine failures, and he came by and said, I'm about had it. I'm going back to California. I said, just a minute, Harry. So I got Joyce and my son, and we packed up and away we went. And it was late in August anyway, so the season was just about over. No problem for Ray. And I said, you know, you gonna give me a call when the defoliation season starts? I said, yeah. I said, okay. Because he owed me a bunch of money still. I headed out to California and went to work there in California. And they finally, you know, paid me.
What year is this we're talking about?
1961. 61, yeah. I stayed in California for one season, and I go to work in a lumber yard. Yeah, in a lumber yard in the off season, because I didn't hook up with anybody in California to go to work. The next year, my buddy called me up and said, "Hey, there's a guy up here who's looking for a crop duster." I said, "Go on up. It's Pawnees. It's, you know, perfect for you." Oh, okay. So I go up and talk to these folks, and they're potato producers and cotton, and they've got maybe about 3 or 4 sections of land under cultivation, and they got a big potato processing plant up there west of Fresno, and so they've got their own aircraft. They're farmers, but they've got their own aircraft. Okay, so it's a Pawnee, so I got to work for these guys, and they wanted me to stay on the ranch, so I bought a house trailer and parked it on the ranch there, so I'd be right on the strip. Worked out pretty good for a while. Some mechanical problems. The guy that was supposed to be keeping track of the maintenance, who was the senior flying partner, he wasn't really good at anticipating problems, and a carb heat linkage came loose on me a couple of times. And when I'm going a little farther than I really wanted to go, because when I came to work for these folks, this is on the west side of California, the Huron Avenal area, and said, "Gee, this is great to work in. Look at this, wide open spaces." I said, "Yeah, we do most of our work at night here." I said, "Well, how do you see?" He said, "Oh, yeah, don't worry about it." So we started working at night there. That was interesting, but like I said, had carburetor linkages. And one time I ran into the door of the truck one time too at night. We were parked on a real narrow, hardtop road, or the truck was. We're using that to land and take off as at night, and I had to get. It goes one way in and one way out, so I land and then taxi up to where the truck and the tank and all that stuff was. I'd pass them and then make a U-turn and then come back and get loaded, because the loading device was on the left-hand side of the aircraft. Port side, for you folks that understand what I'm talking about. And as I was passing the truck out, the idiot and driver had left the door open. So I ran with the wing bow, and it's a wooden wing bow in that aircraft. So I parked. I said, "Oh, Glenn, what the hell? Look at that! That thing's patchy. Don't worry about it." He just pushed it in, put some duct tape on it, and away we went.
Angus, did you spray at night because of the wind?
No.
Did it make it any? I mean, what was the
That's
reason?
one of the minor reasons, actually.
It struck me to be maybe that's why they sprayed.
No, you
Dave, are you gonna be around?
you carry bigger loads at night. That's the altitude.
Yeah.
As you can imagine, is about
Sure.
half what it is in the daytime.
Yeah, with the cooler.
Yeah, and so you
Yeah.
carry bigger loads, and the bee had a lot of seed crops there, and so they have a lot of beehives populating the fields, which increase yield 100%. You double your yield, in other words, by putting bees around and in the field. So you can't be spraying near them in the daytime. At night they go to bed, so it's not a problem. run into the occasional one, but they don't mind. That's it. And also, you get less observation from people, concerned about chemical spray. If you're doing work at night because they're in bed, can't see what you're doing.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, where's your family now?
They're with me.
They're up on the
Living
ranch?
in a trailer right
In
on
the
this truck.
trailer?
Yeah.
And the kids are, kid or kids?
I have two then. John is just a baby, and Angus is just a toddler.
And so they're not school age yet?
No.
So how long does this gig last?
It lasted one season, and I would talk to the owners of the aircraft. This aircraft needs attention. And Glenn Carlsgott, who was the other pilot, he is also a licensed aircraft guy. It's not so bad. Yeah, well, Glenn, I was out flying one night, and about at liftoff, the carburetor heat linkage came loose, and I had a load of liquid on board that, if I'd have dumped it then, it would have. That's like maybe about $1,000 or $2,000 worth of stuff. Fortunately, I was going downhill, so I didn't have to dump it, and was able to find the field that I was going to work at, and then do some spas and then come back.
Well, when you said carburetor linkage, was that
Carburetor heat linkage.
heat linkage? And
Yeah.
did you need, was that cold?
No.
Or just, did it go, did it spring load to some position that gave you?
No, it's a manual. It's a manual.
Just a manual.
Yeah, you must have only been flying jets, never flying a recip engine aircraft. You don't know what carburetor heat is?
No, but what I was trying to figure out is what that, you were just upset because the linkage came loose, not because it had any meaning to how the airplane was going to fly.
Oh yes.
It does have meaning.
No, not aerodynamic, but engine power. What it does is routes the intake air through the exhaust system to heat it. Then that goes into the carburetor to not dissolve, but melt any ice that accumulates in your throat of your carburetor.
My question,
Yeah.
we do this so you can explain it to people who are going to listen to it.
Yeah.
But for your situation that night, was it critical to your flight that night that it came loose?
It would have been if I would have been in a situation where I couldn't climb over stuff, or like say I come up against a great big tree line with a full load of chemical on board, and trees. Either I had to dump the chemical and turn away, or else not, because I wasn't able to climb normally with the carburetor heat on.
So when it came loose, the heat came on.
Oh yeah.
Okay, that's what I wanted to get onto the tape. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that
I see what you're saying. I guess it's if the linkage comes loose, it just goes on.
Yeah, just so the valve would open and
So
and
the
the heat would
linkage
go,
keeps it open.
keeps it open.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. That happened a couple of times. I
Well,
didn't
you-
like that.
no,
I didn't
well,
like it. They wouldn't fix the wingtip either. And I thought, it's not worth it. So I come back to Southern California, and I got a job managing a lumber yard there. Anyway, it was a lot of fun. I know a 2x4 from a 16-penny nail, so.
Do you remember the name of the company?
Sure, American Building Center. And
What town were you in now?
that's in Los Alamitos.
Okay. And it's getting up into the middle 60s by now.
64.
64, 5. Things are starting
64,
to
yeah.
happen over in Vietnam. And what are you thinking about when you're working in that lumber yard and What are your thoughts about what you're hearing?
Well, I
over?
was thinking, you know, I can only go so far working in a lumberyard, you know, and even in management, which I wasn't too fond of because it's a retail business, you know, and it wasn't all that well paying, but it was fun. And anyway, I heard that the Army was looking for helicopter pilots. And I wasn't a citizen then yet. I was still a Canadian citizen. Had a valid passport, valid, immigration papers and all that stuff. I was properly. They nearly drafted me when I first came down because I registered late for the draft. I had to talk my way out of that. Anyway, I was still a Canadian citizen, but I heard that they were looking for helicopter pilots, and so, and I'd been recruited for that Cuban thing too, or not in any overt way, but very subtle. I didn't realize it till many years later.
Because of the B-25.
Yeah. And so I went down to do you know where Fort MacArthur is? In Southern California there.
Yeah.
It's right in the Long Beach Harbor there.
Yeah.
I went down there and went into the headquarters building and said, I hear that you folks might be are looking for helicopter pilots. I don't know if I said helicopter pilots or not. And they said, yes, come with me. Then they marched me into this office, and it was a field grade officer, a major, with aviator wings on. And he said, what's your name? And I told him all my stuff. And he said, what's your flying experience? And I told him all my stuff. And he said, take this form down to the recruiting units and take these tests. Okay, so I think I had a day off in the weekdays, work weekend, so I took them down to the, where they process all the inductees. Took it down there, they gave me the test, and the guy said, oh, these look good. Gave me a copy back, said, take them back to Fort MacArthur. So I took them back same day, and they gave them to that officer again, that field grade officer, and he came out and he said, I want you to go to Fort Ord for a flight physical. Oh, okay. I want to see about flight physical. Okay. So he said, be there Tuesday, 9 o'clock at the hospital. Okay, so I don't think they had a hospital. They had some kind of up there, and they, poked me and prodded, and I guess that was okay. So then they gave me the paperwork, and I brought it back with me over to Fort MacArthur again. I gave it to the major, and he looked it over. Go out in the order room there and see that second lieutenant out there. Go out and see him. So I go out in the order room. I give all this stuff to that second lieutenant, and I'm standing in front of him. He says, "Okay, so raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I solemnly swear." And then he gave me some orders to report into Fort Walters in May 23rd. So I did.
Well, I would have to think you must have had 4,000 or 5,000 hours.
I had a pretty good time by it, yeah.
By then,
Yeah.
and a lot of very good experiences.
Yeah.
That
Maybe not that much time, but a
Well,
lot of experience.
a lot of
Flying
experience.
fixed wing aircraft.
Yeah, and so they would have been out of their minds not to have considered all that.
Yeah.
You would have been good in any service.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have made any difference.
No. I was used to service life, and I knew how to fly. Certainly, I could crop dust at night without killing myself. And so they sent me to helicopter school. 8 months, and that was fun.
Where was that?
Fort Walters, Texas, to start with, for 3 months of primary, and then to Fort Rucker, Alabama, for the final 5 months, flying H-19s, Korean War vintage Sikorsky aircraft. And we were training with Iranian pilots at that time.
Now, what engine would have been in the H-19?
That would have been the same one in the T6, the 1340, R1340 S3H1 or 2 maybe or whatever.
And it was a radial engine
Yep.
helicopter with one set of rotors.
Yep.
And did the pilot sit way up high in the, like an H-34?
Yes, it was the precursor to the H-34.
Okay.
Noisy, really noisy. Hydraulics with no feel to them and no friction on them, so your hand went to sleep after a while holding onto the cyclic. And flying without boost was almost a two-handed job, but you couldn't do that because you had to keep the throttle open. It was quite a experience learning how to. The initial was a hiller. It had paddles that determined your rotor angles.
Well, those helicopters, as I remember, had to be pretty aware of RPM and manifold pressure, and
Yep.
I mean, you were watching a lot of things while you were flying those to keep from overboost or whatever, underboost, and it was.
Boosting wasn't a problem with those things. That very seldom did. Maybe with the H-19 you could get into a boost problem, but most of them were underpowered.
Did you ever have much trouble with ground resonance?
One time, yeah, doing practice engine outs at a hover, and I touched down and it started jiggling around, and so I just lifted off again. That stops it. I didn't like wheels. I liked skids.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in Texas, there you would go and fly into these confined areas that were in dairy farms, and it'd be cows all over the place. And you had to get out of the helicopter and then to back up, because this thing didn't have a lot of power. The Hiller H-23, you had to back up. So what you do is take the rocks, find out where the prevailing wind is, then take rocks and put them on the ground, and then back up to where the start of the rocks was, and then follow that out. So you get translational lift, and then pop out of the hole you're in, and don't hit any cows because they're expensive. And it was fun.
So your family is moving every time?
Oh yeah.
Every time. So your wife must have been a pretty good military wife to
She had a great sense of humor.
be handling all that.
Yeah.
And so you get through your helicopter initial training. So with your experience, do you go right on into an operational unit, or do they keep you for instructor? What do they do with you after you?
I graduated from flight school in February. Is it February? No, in January of 1966. And as part of the ceremony, getting rings and all that stuff, they give you orders. And my orders were to report into the selection unit at Tonsanute on February 23rd.
Right overseas.
Yeah.
And what rank are you at?
I'm a warrant officer, W1,
W1.
with
Okay.
less than a year in service.
And so you're at Tonsanute.
Which?
You said Tonsanute? You got it?
Yeah, that's where the personnel selection unit is. It's co-located with the airport.
Okay. And your wife and family, what do you do with them when you get your?
I take them back to Canada.
They go back where your mom and
Yeah.
in
California, Texas, Alabama, Canada.
Now, your wife, has she been to Canada to live?
She's from Canada.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Yeah, I'm catching up again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's back with family and friends, and the kids, are they happy?
Well, they're still too young.
They don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah. The snow after Texas would be kind of fun,
Yeah.
you know, for kids. So Tonsanute, tell me what happens.
You're double bunked there, and I was there a day or so, and they gave me orders to go to a Medevac unit. The picture that I showed you there. And so they call up the unit and they tell me I'm down there. So they say, well, send them up out in a truck. So I get in a truck and go out to Long Bin.
It was that close to Tonsanute, huh?
Well, no, it wasn't. It was.
The long truck ride.
It was like Long Bin was like about 25, 30 miles from Saigon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big logistical supply area and hospital. So I get there and involved with the Medical Service Corps, are the commissioned officers that do the medical evacuation business for the hospitals. So we had we were a detachment, so we had 6 aircraft.
Which were
UH-1s.
UH-1s, which were set up for Medevac.
Yes.
You had no guns or anything.
No, we didn't want guns.
Yeah.
No, didn't want them. Not for the reason that you think.
Just wait.
The weight was negligible on that aircraft for speed.
Speed.
They do create a lot of amount of parasite drag that is better. And although most of the aviators commissioned and warned didn't understand what the issue was with parasite drag and how fast you could fly, the faster you could fly and with less power without all kinds of externally mounted stuff on the aircraft.
Sure.
So I graduated with a standard instrument ticket too from flight school.
Did you have to fly with other pilots for a while before?
Yes.
So, how long did that last?
Well, you always flew with 2 pilots, you know. So
Always?
Yeah.
Okay.
Until we got to understand how to do the approaches and probably develop your own, it was like about 2 to 3 months, I would say, before we finally understood the hazards of approaching, of making a medevac pickup in the field, and when the area was allegedly declared secure, but they kept shooting at you anyway, you know. You had to understand it and how fast and how to come in. It wasn't, you often I see some of the aircraft today and making medevac approaches to a hot area. Looks like a normal landing to me, but I never ever did that.
Yeah. So, it is risky business. That was one of the toughest businesses you could be in. Is flying an unarmed helicopter, medevac, day and night, good, bad weather,
Yeah.
no matter what it was.
Yeah.
And going into areas that you'd never been in before. So, I can see why 3 months would be minimum to
Oh yeah.
get a guy.
Yeah, and one of the problems is at the Army, the flight school we went through, H-19s were the aircraft everybody was trained on. And then I got my instrument ticket in a UH-1, but I didn't have any contact work.
Yeah.
They supposedly give you 10 hours, but they had to rush it up because, everybody was due to graduate within a few days. They just didn't have enough aircraft to go around. And they had old A models and stuff like that were out of service. So you're riding in country, you're very little, it's like learning how to fly instruments, but never having to learn how to land and take off in a fixed wing aircraft.
Yeah.
So,
No, and helicopter pilots were at a disadvantage for instrument flying. You know, it was in the Marine Corps too. They had a lot of problems.
and I don't know why. I never had any problem flying instruments.
You
I could take off on instruments. I couldn't land to the ground, although it was supposedly done. I wouldn't ever try it. It was stupid.
Yeah.
But making an instrument approach was no different than fixed wing aircraft. The only difference is when you have to come to a hover.
Your time there was, how long do you say in Medevac?
I was there about 6 months or 7 months, yeah.
And did you get through that 7 months without getting shot down once or twice? Because that was not unusual.
No, I never got shot down in Medevac. I got hit a few times, but from above in the LZ when we went to pick up some wounded. The guy was sitting up in a tree shooting at us, and right behind my head, and hit the crew chief right in the butt, because we were sitting back to back, pilot, co-pilot, crew chief, medic. Hit the crew chief right in the butt.
We did.
Just skin, you know, and went through a bunch of blankets first, and then
Oh, okay.
just a little flesh wound, no big deal.
So you're really a UH-1 pilot now,
Yeah.
and you got your time in Medevac. Is it one of those things where they rotate you through that,
No.
or
I want you to stay. When I got there, after about a couple of months, maybe 3 months, I realized that they had a hoist aircraft, and the only people doing hoist missions were the Air Force and the old egg beater aircraft, you know, the intermeshing rotor blades.
the
Cayman
banana?
Husky.
The banana?
Cayman Husky, yeah.
Yeah.
No, the banana, the H-21. No, this is the Cayman Husky.
Yeah, with the side by side.
Yeah. And slow. Oh, they're terrible. But and they would not leave the ground unless they got, you know, presidential approval of security in the landing zone. So and they were so damn slow. It was, you know, airspeed wise, you know, and the maneuverability was not good with those things, and they could only land in a certain anyway. We had the hoist in our maintenance tent, and I said, you know, there's the crew chief was one at note. He said, "We got hoists here, you know." I said, yeah, I said, "Yeah. Well, when did we use them?" I said, "We never used them." So I went to see the operations officer. Said, "What are we going to do with those hoists?" "Well, maybe you should practice with them. But right now, higher headquarters doesn't want us to use them because they retract it too far. But they had a fix for it. They'd on the cable, retract too far, cut the cable off, down you go. The person on the other end of it. But they had a fix for it. So, well, why don't you go out and practice with it? So, okay, so we got an aircraft, rigged it up with the hoist, and they had the Stokes litter, which is a big metal basket, you know, the wounded could lay in it flat. And we did with that. And what prompted was we were doing hoist missions wasn't hoist missions, but we were doing missions for the airborne folks, and they had rigged up a 200-foot long rope and a monkey harness. So they put their wounded in a monkey harness, and then you'd hover up a couple of 100 feet and pull the guy up, and then you'd have to fly very slowly over to a secure area to drop them down. So, and there had to be people on the ground there to take them out of the harness and put them in a stretcher, and you know, and then bring them in the aircraft when you finally sit down. Not a good thing. You know, the guy could bleed out by that time. So let's try the hoist. So we tried them. We put sandbags in the Stokes litter. How many pounds in a sandbag? Oh, maybe about 20 pounds. well, we'll put about 8 of them in there. That's maybe 200 pounds, 150 to 200 pounds. Okay, we'll do that. And, you know, it was no problem at all. We got a Stokes litter. They also had a jungle penetrator, which was kind of like an anchor. It had 3 seats on it. They folded up until it looked like an anchor. And then the seats folded down and it was a strap. This is for people that were not completely disabled, but could hang on. And so we practiced with those. That worked out pretty good. Okay, so so when are we going to use it? So we're just waiting around. Finally, you know, I could tell I was getting enough experience that some of the people we were picking up, you know, could have been done. They had to move into an open area, and at one time, we got a call from a patrol out in the jungle, and they said, "Come and get us." And we got out there, and there was no place to land. And the platoon leader was crying and screaming at us, "Pick him up, pick him up." Well, we don't have anything to do. We don't even have a rope long enough to get it into the jungle to get this guy out. And, you know, finally he said, "Fuck you guys." He's bled to death anyway. So that kind of prompted a response. So I went back to see our commanding officer and told him that I didn't care what higher headquarters said, that I was going to take this hoist up with me next time I went out. So he said, "Okay, I'll go with you." And he did.
And
He didn't get to do the first hoist pickup, though. One of the other guys got killed at night. His deputy, a couple of them, and both field grade officers, ran into a tree at night in an approach to an artillery base. And so I had to go back and, you know, do the things commanders have to do when their troops get killed. And so I did it with a guy that was a Korean War pilot. Not bird dogs. What do they call us? The small.
what, the OEs? The OEs?
Whatever.
Yeah, they were little OE ones.
Yeah, that's all I ever flown. They'd send them to transition from a fixed wing into helicopters, and I think they got about 10, 15 hours or some ridiculous amount. But he couldn't hover. I mean, you know, he couldn't keep it. It was in the ballpark hovering. He couldn't land, and he was really nervous too. He was really concerned. So whenever he flew with him, you had to be very careful. Do all the flying. He's a nice guy. He was a nice guy, so he and I went and did the first hoist mission.
And did that prompt other hoists to be put on other helicopters?
Oh,
or
yeah.
did just
Yeah, that started it.
that started it? And
So
what rank are you now?
I'm still at W1.
Still W1. Well, with your experience in time, you ought to be kind of running the show with these young guys running around.
You'd think so. The politics involved in unit operations are always there, of course. But you're right. I was the instigator of using the hoist. Mainly because the commander would have had to court-martial me otherwise.
Yeah. Well, and I can't imagine not having them. You know, it's just knowing how that terrain is.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be the only way you could get some guys, particularly a pilot that's gone down. You know, and he's, you know,
But
living.
more likely the troops. They're out there in the jungle all the time.
Yeah.
They can't make it. One time we went out, this before we started using the hoist, went out there and they had to blow the area with explosives, and it wasn't big enough, and we tried to fit in there, and cut down some more trees, and they blow them up. We finally got in there, but we we chopped down a bunch of trees ourselves. They didn't get them all. As long as you don't get the tear rotor, it's okay. But the main rotor blades are very expensive, of course. And when you're hovering, they're at a high angle of attack, and you don't get the leading edge, although it's really sturdy. The trailing part's just glued on there. It ruins the blade, basically. But
So in your medical lifting, how many troops do you think you picked up during your time there? Any estimate?
no,
Is there any?
not if you count sick call, because we used to have to do sick call, go from base to base picking up sick call.
What would
bring
you
them to the
think
hospital.
was the toughest, hairiest mission you had in a medevac?
I think probably the hoist mission, because although those sandbags should have approximated the weight of a guy, we sent our jungle penetrator down, and so the crew chief was operating it, and he says to Mr. Desveaux, he says they're putting 2 guys on this thing. I said, 2 guys, that's maybe 100, 300 pounds. Yeah, I think we can handle that. He says, okay. So he said, bring him up. So he starts bringing him up, and the aircraft goes, start tilting over. I finally got the cyclic all the way over at the stop between my leg and the, or I guess my leg was between the collective and the cyclic. Jammed. Got it stopped tilting, and we got him on board.
Both of them.
Yeah, but they no, it sent the guys up. They sent their gear up too, because they didn't want to carry all that extra gear with them. I said, Chief, next time we're not taking any gear with us.
We're gonna take 1 minute. What would have been a normal tour for an Army pilot?
1 year.
1 year. And so, what of that whole year is spent in medevac? The whole year?
No, only
Okay.
7 months of it.
And then what happened?
I transferred out to a assault helicopter company
Which was where?
in Benoit.
And what kind of birds were they flying?
Same thing.
And
Everybody was flying Hueys.
the same thing. And were these now armed?
Yes.
And so what experience did you have to go through to fly with armed?
7
Did
or
you
8
have to
months. Yeah. Let's see, I was there a week, and I was assigned, because of my experiences, assigned to fly with the new platoon leader, who was a captain. Nice guy. Anyway, our mission, which was just a routine one, was night standby with quick reaction force, platoon of infantry, 10 aircraft, platoon of infantry, and it was the 25th Division. Yeah, it was out in a big old race pay, and they were extracting them, bringing them back to Puchi. No big deal. Routine. We'll just sit there till they finally, and then we'll go home and hit the bar. We were sitting there, everything's going real good. We're listening in to the CNC command and control aircraft talking, and then he says, "Oh, the last aircraft went down." And he said, "Oh," there's some more conversation. "Oh, the second last aircraft went down too. So I'm going to go down and pick him up, bring him in." He went down. So we had no CNC. So the platoon leader says, "This is our job." This all of a sudden come activated. He says, "What are we going to do?" I said, "We need to know where this place is at." We just can't go flying around in the middle of the night looking for people on the ground that probably don't have their lights, off, you know. And in the meantime, one of the slick pilots from the unit that was extracting the troops, when I say slick pilots, that means they're not, they have externally mounted guns, but they're not gunships per se. They're just straight transport carrying helicopters. He comes running over and says, we got 3 aircraft down there. Yeah. He said, we'll lead you in. Okay. So the platoon leader looks at me. He says, what are we going to do? I said, let's go. So we load up, crank up, and follow this young warrant officer into the area. By the time we get there, as we're approaching the area, we can see that the Air Forces are already in the DC-3 throwing out flares because it's a great big rice paddy area, throwing out flares. Keep the area lighted. We don't have any communication with us because I want to tell them to stop.
Different frequencies. Different radios.
There was no coordination between anything. The gunships had gone there, so we didn't have gunship escort either. They'd gone and expended, and we're back rearming someplace. Don't know what the frequency they were on either. We could have caught on, the emergency frequency, 243 nothing, whatever it is, and hopefully had some of them. But if they were all shut down, rearming and refueling, so I didn't think we should wait. The people on the ground were, under attack basically. We get to the dam area, you can see the Air Force up there keeping the area well lighted with some flares. Anyway, I spread out just a little bit from the guy that was leading us in, and he slowed down. He was making an approach to Tonsanute Heliport, And just as soon as he dropped under the lighted areas, they weren't using tracers, but down he went. And it's too late to turn around. We got to get on the ground. So just as soon as we drop under the lights into the lighted area, we get blasted. The bullets are hitting the seat of the armored seat. The instrument panel, instruments are all going away. I'm getting hit in the back of the leg and my hand with shrapnel, and hydraulics are gone. So I maintain control and just keep leading them right to the touchdown. We touched down in the water, and I said, he says, let's get going. I said, this aircraft isn't going anywhere. It's finished. And the troops had unloaded by that time, and so what are we gonna do? We're stuck here. So the crew chief and gunner jump out into the water, and the water's about this deep. Rice paddy, but they forget to pull back the armor shields on our seats. The armored, I don't know if you've ever seen them. They're great big armored seats come up to about your neck here, and then on the side here too, and not as much in the middle. So, but I'm wearing a chicken plate and a flak jacket. And
explain a chicken plate.
It's piece of armor plate. It's metal and ceramic layer in a harness, and then you put the flak jack over it, so if it hits the thing, the shrapnel won't hit your arms and stuff like that. So you can't get out I can't reach back there and slide that thing back. I just can't, you're not mobile enough, so we have to go out in the middle. And so we're scrambling to get up on the console and then between the seats, and then the other guy gets out first, and And finally I get up and I just get my hips between the two seats and I get hit in the side right here. And felt like I had a baseball bat. I thought maybe, it was just before that actually, and I thought maybe I hit my shoulder because my shoulder was really sore. But maybe I hit my shoulder on that damn seat, you know, jumping out, get up and lay on the ground in the water there. And I'm not sure, so I asked the crew chief to check my back and see. I kind of feel something back there. I said, is that just a scratch or is that? He reaches up under my shirt. He said, there's a hole back there. Shit. I'm lying in, you know, in really contaminated water with a sucking chest wound. But I'm not, no pain or anything like that, and no complete disability. I'm not, you know, no, and I'm not losing blood to the point where I'm going to lose, you know, consciousness or like that. So we go over next to the dike, one of the dikes in there, and we keep our heads down below the level of the dike because the guy's still shooting at us. We got no sense of humor. He kept shooting at us even when we were down, and we're still waiting. Finally, and the Air Force is still up there lighting the place up like a friggin' Christmas tree. Here comes another aircraft. One of the Hornets, I think. That's their tactical call sign. It's a slick aircraft just like ours. He comes down and he comes and lands and starts hovering around to pick people up. And I can't believe they didn't get him. I mean, he just right in plain view. They must have rented ammunition or cleared out the area or something, or else our troopers got him, one or the other. Anyway, he comes hovering around and finally gets over to where our aircraft is, and they try and carry me up, but they can't pick me up, so I have to jump into the aircraft. I lay down on the floor and I grab a hold of the seat. Things that hold the arms or legs to hold the seat to the floor and lay down flat. And we're not going to get out of here. But we did. Took me to the hospital. Ended up in the hospital there. And I was laying in the litter in the emergency room there. And I looked, and here was a doctor that I knew from the 173rd Airborne, one of their physicians, and he transferred to this hospital so I could do more surgery. It was a surgical hospital, so I could do more surgery because he liked that. So I yelled at him. He came forward and said, "What the hell are you doing here?" I said, "I don't know. I might have got wounded or something." He said, "Let me see." And he starts poking and prodding around, and then he gets really upset, and the next thing I know, I wake up in hospital beds, on the ward, all hooked up to all kinds of stuff, and he comes by a day later when I'm fully conscious. He says, "Oh, you had some serious problems there. Your right lung shut down, and your organs were starting to collapse. So we had to do something right away. So we opened you up and made some repairs, but we couldn't find a bullet. So we threw all that shit back in and sewed you up." This guy's an airborne. I have to remember, he went to actual airborne school, He jumped out of an airplane, a perfectly good one at that. And said, "You're going to be here for a while, and I'll come and see you," and all that stuff. So he did. Anyway, when I met him, I used to go standby at their headquarters for Medevac for them. And one time I went to the mess hall, and I can't think of his name right now. Anyway, we're in the mess hall, and the cavalry commander comes in, and he's got tanks, and one of their tanks were blown up, and a bunch of people killed. And he says, I've got this is airborne. He says, I've got this leg left over. What do you want me to do with it? And the doctor says, well, send it to jump school. The cavalry guy was not amused. He knew he was about to drag him out of there and beat the shit out of him, but he didn't.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So how long did it take you to get over that, or did you just get sent home?
They sent me home.
Yeah.
To Madigan General Hospital in Fort Lewis, Washington.
So you ended up with shrapnel in your leg, in your hand. Did you have a shoulder wound?
It was actually in the side here.
Is it side?
Yeah.
So you had three different areas you got shot in that one mission.
Yeah.
And well, that's more than your share, that's for sure.
Well, yeah. I'm still in one piece, though.
So how long did it take you to get released from the hospital?
February of the next year.
So how long
They wanted to discharge me. My medical records. They said, you're not really. We shouldn't keep you. We can't keep you on active duty. We're going to discharge you with a 100% disability pension for 90 days or some BS thing like that. I said, no, you're not. I said, what do you mean? You're not discharging me. Well, I said, well, what do you want to do? I want to know what my next duty station is going to be. So they smiled. And they fixed my records. I think they threw away all my hospital stuff because I never could find them after that.
So.
And they gave me orders to go to Hunter Army Airfield. Actually, it was Hunter Air Force Base at the time. Fort Stewart, Georgia, Hunter Army Airfield, Air Force Base at the time. Savannah, Georgia.
Were you still a W-1?
W-2.
W-2. And you're kept in the service then. And your family in Canada, do they come to live where the hospital is?
Actually, no, they didn't, because they weren't going to discharge me. So they would have to, and then they would have to uproot and.
Yeah.
Anyway, because I was sent home for 30 days of leave, medical leave, so I was mobile. And anyway, it would have been a problem. But anyway, I got my orders and went back up to Edmonton, and put Joyce and the kids in the car and drove to Savannah, Georgia. Found a place there, stayed on post there. The Air Force was just shutting it down for a Air National Guard unit. Those great big 4-decker Globemasters with that
124.
funny snoot.
Yeah, 124.
Yeah, really weird looking airplane.
We called them crowd killers.
They were just closing it down at the time. And it was
the littlest wing for the biggest airplane. I could never.
Yes.
That was just amazing. Now, so are you going to have a career in the Army? Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah.
And where are you with your citizenship?
I'm not a citizen yet.
You're still a Canadian.
Yep. And I took care of that while I was in Savannah. I was, because of my instrument ticket, they were starting up the school there to train pilots. And because of my instrument ticket, I was going to be an instrument instructor. And so they sent me back to Fort Rucker to learn how to be an instrument instructor. Well, all Fort Rucker ever did was, when they sent people there to learn to be an instrument instructor, was get them an instrument ticket.
Which you had?
Yeah. So the instructor says, your records say you got an instrument ticket. I said, yeah. He said, when did you get that? I said, in flight school. Really? So, what can I teach you? Well, you're the boss. I mean, you know, is there some magical personality change that I need to make to be a good instructor? Yes, cut out that smart ass language and no vulgarities either. Yes, sir.
So did they keep you there to instruct, or did
No.
they send you back?
Yeah, after a couple of weeks, they didn't know there was no graduation for me. I already had an instrument ticket, so they gave me a certificate. Said, yeah, I am wine. Go to work. So I went back to Savannah, and we started the first class of students there.
And how long would the instrument? This is an instrument program.
Yeah, it's like.
How long would that last to get a guy an instrument ticket?
Well, they weren't doing regular instrument tickets. They were doing kind of a tactical ticket, which only authorized you to make tactical instrument flying, which amounted to, other than a familiarization with being. They didn't really take it seriously like the other services do the instrument flying. The people in the aviation part of the Army at the time were from the Bell helicopter era. They could see the value of the newest aircraft. They didn't see the value of the or if they did, they didn't know how to approach it. The value of having instrument-rated pilots, because most of the helicopters at that time, you going and flying instruments with them was difficult. Even the most modern one they had didn't have a autopilot, so you had to be on the controls all the time. So it was kind of like, they gave everybody 50 hours, I think, 50 hours of instrument instruction, which is...
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And then they never ever pursued it after that.
The sad part of a lot of it is they never really get to use that until they're in instruments the first time without an instructor. They're on their own, and that's where you can get into trouble.
Most of them, unless they were trapped.
Yeah.
That's the only time they ever used it. Because then nobody that I remember ever wanted to go IFR flying.
Yeah, no reason.
Voluntarily.
Yeah. So, how long do you stay there as an instructor?
I was there until 68. Just after TET happened there. Being an instrument instructor was not my favorite thing to do. It was dull. And they were going to downgrade the aircraft from Hueys to Bell Ace-13s, the bubble. I think they need me back in Vietnam. So I contacted DA and said, I need to go back, transfer back to Vietnam. They need me over there. We sure do. And the colonel commanding the base, when he heard about it, he cornered me in the hall. He said, "You're not leaving." Yes. Well, sir, I think he stamped it for me. So anyway, I ended up back in Vietnam again. And I could go down the Delta. It's the fourth, I don't know, the terrain down there. It's a flat rice paddies at group headquarters. I was supposed to be a bird dog maintenance officer down there because I was, I don't know, that was the only fixed wing job they could find for me, I guess. I didn't care if it was a fixed wing or not. Thought it was too valuable to fly in an assault helicopter unit, I guess. But the bird dog units did more dangerous things than the assault helicopter companies did.
Were these the 837s, the push bulls?
No.
The Cessna?
Uh-uh.
Or the OB-1s? That?
Yeah. They put rockets and machine guns on them, and you could do artillery adjustment fire, and observation, and stuff like that. And mostly working with the South Vietnamese. And so it sounded pretty interesting. But anyway, I ended up in group headquarters once, in working for the S4. And they had, at that time, they were working with a pump and bladder system to collapsible, including the hose, so they could take it to these stage fields that all over the area and refuel from the stage field rather than having drive a truck in or whatever. So it sounded like a good idea to me. Unfortunately, the pump never it worked out well. It was so high performance. That's not the proper word, but it was so touchy and wasn't manufactured properly. I guess it failed. It run about an hour. That's it. This is pumping fuel, so the hoses collapse. That's fine. You put them all in one, an aircraft. Well, the Hueys were in a little short supply, so our 164th group were looking around for aircraft and a pilot to fly them, and Europe was closing down their Otter. They were, graduating to helicopters only. So they were sending these Otters back to the States. Well, they have a couple of them diverted to Vietnam, and it was a Otter unit in Vietnam, by the way, a whole company of them, flying leaflet drops mostly.
From Canada?
Huh?
From where?
From Bung Tao.
Okay.
The whole company. They sent me down there to transition into Otters, and I came back, and they finally, the Otter showed up at the port, and we flew it back down to Canto, and then we messed around with that for a while, and things weren't going well for the mobile pumping station. I wasn't hearing anything happening with that. Anyway, another one came in too, so they sent me down to Bung Tao again, pick it up, along with my instructor from that unit, the Otter unit. So we flew it back, and he caught a ride home. Anyway, next day I was flying it at a runway prop with. The thing wouldn't stop. It kept cycling, not runaway, but it's cycling from low to high pitch. It wouldn't stop. I had no control over it. So fortunately, I was just in a traffic pattern, and at night with plenty of altitude, so I just came in and landed. And that was the last I saw of that. The other one had an engine that was overhauled in a factory that civilian overhaul outfit that the pilots in the Otter unit that I got the transition condemned. They said, "Oh, they're doing something wrong, and they're losing valves." And those things are not the ones you want to force land in an Otter. You're going over. That's considering it's flat. So it wasn't a good situation for that aircraft, and it was a little underpowered. I had a hard time convincing the rotary wing pilots that the thing was underpowered. On a hot day, I could get maybe 100 to 200 feet a minute climb out of it at climb power. Not good.
Not for an otter.
Not in a combat zone, it isn't.
No,
and they thought that they could, load how many seats? I got 9 seats in it. 9 seats in it. They could put 9 seats in it. The last mission I had with them, in which I got in a lot of trouble, was the group chaplain coordinated with the local convent to fly a bunch of nuns up to Dalat, which is where their headquarters, I guess, was. I don't know, or vacation something. Anyway, one morning I show up. I know that I'm gonna do some flying that morning, and he's already got them loaded. He got every seat occupied, plus a few sitting in the aisle, and all their baggage and stuff. My co-pilot is the group safety officer, a field grade officer, and the group chaplain is a field grade officer, a lieutenant colonel, and the group commander is of course full colonel. And I look at all this stuff on my aircraft and I say, okay, let's start unloading. So I had to unload everything, and then only people can get in the aircraft are people that have a seat belt, and your baggage to go. They did not like that. They didn't like it at all. So I don't care. I'm not going to kill myself, or kill them, especially because of some misjudgment. So I don't get full refuel. I just get about 2/3 of fuel load, and away we go up to Dalat. Get up to Dalat, drop these ladies off, but not all of them leave, because I got another mission too. I got to go down to Mung Tao, pick up some special forces folks, and take them up to the border, airfield up near the border of Cambodia. They're Navy SEALs, pardon me, not Navy SEALs. They're operating in Cambodia up there. And so these 2 other nuns get back on the airplane. So aren't you staying here? No, we were just escorting them up here. So now I have to, I can't, I guess I could leave them up there. I didn't really realize what was involved with the SEALs either. So, okay, we go down to Vung Tau, and I'm very up with the SEALs, and they've got a ton of stuff to bring with them. They're going on a field mission, so they've got their weapons, they've got explosives, they've got all kinds of stuff. And so then I can't take these nuns. It's too dangerous. So then fortunately, one of the nuns spoke real good English and said, I can't take you guys back. I'll have to come back and get you. So that's all right. We'll go. They went and stayed in a local Catholic nun facility there. But I had refueled all the way up. And so I had to start draining fuel on the aircraft because of the load I was going to carry. Now, I don't know if you remember what Vung Tau looks like. It has a triangular airport. The short one right in front of the tower and the hangars is pointed toward the ocean. The other 2 are aimed, one right and one left. I think it was one right, but anyway, we're the longest. The short one was right in front of the. So, and there's always a crosswind from the onshore breeze. So you get up, line up in the long runway, and you got a nice crosswind with a load of guys with explosives on it. So I have to I give it a try, so I can get all the way to the airfield up in western South Vietnam. I can't get off soon enough. I can't, leap into the air, so I have to defuel some more. 2 or 3 times enough. I get it light enough, and then I that I can make it to Canton, and then I can refuel there. And I tried the short runway, and that didn't work. And anyway, I got back and forced the wind drops off, and I able to use the long runway to get off seals. By this time, it's like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. I'm gonna have to take these guys into an unlit airport with all their gear. So I'm not worried about that part, but I need more fuel. I still have to get fuel, and and I've been talking to my headquarters all the time about this, and I said, and they were upset about the delay. Upset about the nuns. They're upset about the delay. So when I got back to Canton to refuel, they had a helicopter waiting, and they took the seals and all their gear, no problem. Took them, put them exactly where them. But I was not very welcome after that. And I was transferred out to the assault helicopter unit again, which is really what I wanted to start.
The
with.
same old unit?
No.
Another unit?
175th. Wonderful bunch of guys. I was, a senior warrant officer with, 5,000 hours and instrument rating, and they're saying, "What the hell are you doing here?" I don't know, it must be punishment, I guess. Anyway, it was. I ended up every time I'd fly with the regular platoon on a mission, they would do some airworthy things, like they'd climb up on top, or get up on top of a cloud layer, and they want to spiral. This is the whole formation of 10, 15 aircraft. Spiral down and through a hole. I said, no. I said, "You're not going to do that." I said, "We're going to fly around and get closer to Van Law, and then we're going to find a hole. Then we're going to do it one at a time, not the whole damn flight. You fool."
Oh boy.
Yeah, and they didn't like that, so I got transferred to the maintenance department, doing maintenance testing.
Excuse me.
That was good. That was fun.
So how long did you spend there before that tour was up?
Till August of '69.
Now, did you have any more shoot-ups?
No, I other than a couple of rocket attacks where I got hit in the foot with one. Got sent to the hospital.
Was that while you were airborne?
No.
No, on the ground.
Yeah, I was gonna go on R&R, and I was normally I had my own room fairly well bunkered, and our platoon leader there wouldn't sleep in the barracks, which is he wanted to sleep down in the flight line in a great big bunker. This one, I think it's a good idea on thought, but we had a bunker next to our barracks. But anyway, I was going to contact Joyce at that Mars station, thing they had set up. So I and arrange our R&R in Hawaii. I was going to get my first R&R because I didn't get one at first tour.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so I call up. I talk to Joyce. No, I don't talk. I can't talk to her. I'm laying there waiting for her to call me or the Mars guy to make the connection, and I fall asleep on the bed. And next thing I know, the siren is sounding, and I can hear ka-thump, ka-thump, getting louder.
122s?
I don't know, but it was probably rockets, because they couldn't get a mortar that close to us on that big base, and then closer and closer, and then I could see some flashes at the top of buildings next to me. In the meantime, it was too late to run to the bunker, so I was laying underneath the bed. I was really close to that concrete floor, and I felt I saw one hit really close, but I didn't. I was pointing towards it, but I got hit in the foot. No big deal, I didn't feel like a little stinging. So I looked down there and the blood was gushing out of my foot. It hit an artery, you know, in the foot. Pain in the ass. Then the worst part of it was I had to climb or crawl through the. I couldn't stand up because they were still firing. I had to crawl through the broken glass to the bunker to get some help because we forgot to wire up all the fluorescent lights. Bunker, get fluorescent light. You know, you put safety wire so that they don't fall out when it, right in the path towards the bunker. So I have to crawl through all the broken glass to get there. So my chest is all scraped, my knees, my instep. I was close to the ground. Get there, and they said they get me to the hospital, and the hospital sews up my foot. So they want to send me to Camp Zama, Japan. So what for? Well, say till your foot will heal and you get better. You know, you can't keep you here. So I immediately get on the phone and call our flight surgeon who's back in Bin Laden. He said, "You got to get me out of here. I'm going on an R next week." He says, "What happened?" I said, "I got a little scratch on my foot and they had to sew it up and no big deal." He says, "Okay, I'll get you out of there. I'll get you released to my custody." So he gets me back there and I go see him and he looked at the thing. He says, "You're going to have to get those stitches taken out while you're on R&R. You can't leave them in there. So you go to Fort Shafter and see this doctor, and he'll take the stitches out." And he writes a little prescription type of thing, you know, for I'm good to me. So I go to Hawaii, I meet Joyce, and we were staying in that hotel all pink, wasn't it? It seemed to me with the whole damn thing.
Royal Hawaiian?
Yeah, it was all pink.
Yeah.
We were staying there. We were having a great.
What year was this?
1968. 69. Pardon me, 69. Yeah. May
Okay.
or April,
Yeah.
May or something like that. Yeah. Having a great time, you know. There was lots of what's his name? That singer.
Don Ho.
Yeah, he's
Tiny
a
Bubbles,
big
Don
style.
Ho.
We were, you know, partying, and you know, I was going swimming and dancing and.
Oh, with that foot, huh?
Yes. So then I go out to Fort Shafter and I look up the doctor. It turns out he's a pediatrician. So he reads the note, and looks, okay, and he takes the stitches out. I barely walk away and it opens up again. Of course, it hadn't healed at all. So I get back to Bin Long and I go see the flight surgeon again. He says, "You dumbass. What are you doing with all that stuff? I'm going to have to ground you for 30 days. You can't fly with that thing open like that. You have to be all taped up, wear a special boot. Wear your boots." So I go back and I tell the operations officer, "Oh, it mattered in hell, but I can't give check rides. I have to give on the unit check pilot. I have to give check rides to all these pilots." I was not popular for doing that stuff, but I did get an R&R in.
So you finish your tour then in that outfit. You come back to Conus. Where do you go?
Fairbanks.
Now, are you in for a career now?
Yeah.
You're going to have a full career.
Theoretically,
You're like
yeah.
62, 3. What did you say? 62 or 3 you went in?
No, 65.
65.
This is
Did any of your time for retirement count from Canada?
nope.
None of it.
No.
So only you. So you go, then 65, 75, 85. You got another long career ahead of you.
Yep. In the meantime, when I was in Savannah, I became a citizen. That was when I was 5 years. You know, in country at that time, you had to be in 5 years. You had to take. It seemed like a written test and an oral exam. And, you know, I read up on my history and all that stuff, and everything went fine until the oral exam. And he asked me a whole bunch of questions about the Constitution and stuff like that. Okay. Answer, okay. Finally, he said, the examiner said, "Whose name is on that bridge between here and South Carolina? Up there about 5 miles." He said, "It's a U.S. senator." And no idea what the hell it was. I gave him some name of some congressman whose name I read in the paper or something like that. He said, "No, you damn fool, what's Senator so-and-so from Georgia?" I can't remember. He's a famous guy too, and still can't remember his name. But he just ignored that, and granted me citizenship anyway.
So you're up in Fairbanks with the wife, 2 kids.
Yep.
And what are you flying in Fairbanks?
Same thing.
Hey, Huey's.
Yeah, I'm flying Huey's there. Well, first they wanted me to fly in H-21s, you know. You want to transition to H-21s? You know, it's the recip engine and wooden blades, you know. And, 30 years old, maybe?
Yeah.
Older than me, maybe.
Yeah. Mm.
No, it's okay. I don't think it's a good, I can do that. So I'm flying Huey's, having a good time.
And what would be the mission?
Well, we were supporting the 172nd Infantry Brigade there in Fairbanks. Winter operations and the usual civil affairs stuff, flying Santa Claus out to Indian villages and other important missions like that.
How long was that tour?
That was 2.5 years.
Doing the same thing?
Not quite. When I was there, I guess in the summertime, I got there in February. Well, no, I got there in August. The next year, I don't remember the exact when, probably in April or May. They kept the 172nd. The commander of the aviation detachment kept bugging me. He says, because they had bird dogs and H-13s. He says, we don't have anybody that can fly all that stuff now. The last guy we had rotated out. So why don't you come and fly with us? You go with the infantry division. I'll let you know. and so I thought that I forgot about that. He was my next door neighbor too, so I couldn't avoid him completely. One day I got handed a set of orders assigning me to the 172nd Infantry Brigade Aviation Detachment.
So
I went in. I had to get checked out in the bird dog, which was a lot of fun. I really liked that. That was still fully aerobatic. You do spins and loops and rolls and all that good stuff. Not very well, but you could do them without straining things too badly.
So you get through a whole tour in Fairbanks.
Yeah.
And the wife and kids are up there with you.
Oh yeah.
And where do you go next?
Do you want to go walk around for a moment?
And what year was this?
1972. I got there in '69, and it was a 2.5 year tour. I rotated out of there and went to Aircraft Maintenance Officer School in Virginia, and to learn how to be a maintenance test pilot, or officially be one anyway. And went through that school for both the UH-1 and the LOH light observation helicopters and all that stuff. And then went to Fort Bragg and worked in the maintenance. Actually, when I got there, they were still restructuring the post, and I got assigned to the Corps headquarters because of my not dual citizenship, but dual aviation qualification. But they didn't have any aircraft. They had to borrow them from the 173rd. The 82nd Airborne when they needed one. Anyway, so I was assigned to work for this captain in, I don't really remember what the deal was. Anyway, he was really an outstanding person, and they were doing a lot of logistics stuff, and the people he had working for him didn't know anything about aviation, and when my commander would ask me about these stuff and I would actually give an answer, he just thought that was great. He could actually communicate now about one of his responsibilities for the group, for the Corps headquarters, which was, big. It was going to be a big step up for him. Anyway, it was a lot. Anyway, but no flying, so I got transferred out into the maintenance, child support, direct support maintenance company there as the production control officer, assistant production control officer, until the production control officer left, and then I inherited that job. That was interesting. All the non-divisional aircraft and the reserve aircraft in the good part of the southeastern United States, Fort Bragg. The reserve folks had such a low priority with respect to repair parts, that they were just having a problem. They were flying aircraft they should never have been flying. And every time they brought one up for maintenance at my place, and I looked at it, it didn't fly for a while because they had so much work doing it. And they had such a low priority ordering parts for them. It took forever to get anything done. That's why they didn't want to put the aircraft down.
And Fort Bragg's in North Carolina, right?
Fayetteville. So, whenever the reserve unit would call me up, you'd come down and pick up one of our aircraft and bring it up for maintenance. We'll be down Wednesday. Get your aircraft ready, and I would get one of my mechanics and a truck driver and a flatbed and a good maintenance crew, and send them down there, and they'd yank the rotor plates and rotor it up, put it on that flatbed and truck it back. Safest way. Anyway, that was not appreciated sometimes. Then from there I went to Germany, and I ended up in the overhaul depot in Coleman Barracks, which was previously Luftwaffe Air Base. They had underground hangars there. When the Germans finally quit, threw in the towel, they flooded their underground hangars. So down there, sitting in that water, is maybe who knows how many German aircraft from World War II vintage. The place, they sealed up the opening so nobody will fall in there, I guess. But they're still there. So we're operated there. That was interesting.
What part of Germany was that?
Coleman Barracks is about 20 miles west of Mannheim, which is about 40 miles south of Frankfurt. So I really liked the job. As quality control officer, I had about 6 Army personnel and about an equal number of civilians, German nationals, some of whom had been in the Army since World War II, or worked for the Army since World War II. The youngest guy was captured there, and he was English language facility was so good that they kept there, and then they finally hired him, and then he learned about airplanes, and he was really a terrific inspector. And that was interesting. They had 4 or 5 hangars of aircraft all over the place on that base. I'd wander around making sure that work was being done right.
And what type of aircraft were there?
Mostly helicopters.
Mostly.
Yes. Some fixed wing. We were doing all the non-divisional aircraft in the United States Army Europe, and including Italy, some from Italy too. So we had a lot of aircraft to cover. It was interesting, especially they had machine shops. The Germans were really good. They if you wanted something done, they would manufacture it for you. They'd been doing this since I was just a kid. They're very good.
Yeah. And how many, and your family was over there with you? And did you have kids over there too?
No,
I mean, more kids with you? Your kids?
just the ones we brought with us.
Which, I kind of missed out on it. How many kids did you have?
Two.
Two, okay.
2 boys.
And how did they like it over there?
They liked it a lot. They got to do a lot of different things, like join the swim team.
Yeah.
They had a nice, great swim team, and then we got to visit West Berlin to compete with the West Berlin swim team, which you will recall there was still the Iron Curtain up, and so we had to go to Frankfurt and get on the troop train, American troop train, and take the troop train to West Berlin, and go through the checkpoints, and it was overnight. I said, I don't remember. They made 9 o'clock leave, maybe earlier in the evening. You got there early in the morning. It was an interesting ride, and the kids were all warned, don't make any gestures toward the Russian guards or the East German guards unless you want to stay on the train, for a week or so, eating sea rations, because you had to have a 4-country passport to get there, and the train commander, usually a fairly junior second lieutenant, was given the sea rations and all this stuff, and it was a lot of fun. We got to Berlin, and we got to see I got a picture of the Checkpoint Charlie.
Yeah.
Well, that's impressive, as I first thought. And the kids got to swim, and a good time was had by all. We went travel with the swim team. We went all over Germany, at the various military posts, swimming in their competitions. So the kids really liked that part of it. They had a good time, and so did we. But anyway, but that time was 77. Things were starting to unwind quickly. The Army was being reduced sharply, and people were being invited to leave, and I was one of them.
So you didn't have your 20 years in?
No.
Because you're about 15 years in the service or so right now, aren't you?
No, actually, I got 26 years, creditable years, because I stayed in the reserve.
Oh, okay, but active,
Yeah.
you're active.
Active was only 12 years, yeah.
Yeah, okay, and so you're out of the service then, huh? You
Yeah.
come home and you're just,
Oh, in South Carolina.
and
Come back to California. I really had, I wanted to continue in the job. When I was in active qualifications, I got involved in a number of aircraft accidents. The technical, and I didn't have any trouble, whether it was pilot error or mechanical, and the last one we did with when the controls for the tail rotor lock on you, there's nowhere to go. You're just going to spin. Anyway, I wanted to stay in that business, and when I came back, I eventually found somebody that dealt exclusively in aircraft accidents, and his name was Charles Finero, and he was in the Burbank area. Pardon me, in North Hollywood. That's where his office was, and he had got a lot of business from an insurance company that was located in Van Nuys Airport, and they were doing a big business at the time. The GI Bill was still operational then, and a lot of the GIs were using their GI Bill benefits to take flight lessons. Well, it kept us busy. It kept us busy. And I learned photography, and how to write reports was the hardest thing of all. Figuring out the accents was fairly easy, but writing the reports was the most difficult, because we were with the local guy, we were just reporting directly to them, and we had a form to. But a lot of our business was from London, and we had to report to the underwriters at Lloyd's, which require you to have a basic knowledge of English grammar and so forth, so they wouldn't laugh too hard. Anyway, that was really interesting too, and also we were doing a lot of crop duster losses, which was my specialty, crop duster, and they liked that part of it. And every time one of the underwriters had come to visit us, inspect our records, I'd arranged to have them fly in a Stearman with an outfit that had headquarters in Bakersfield. And so they thought that was terrific, and never noticed all the mistakes we made in our records.
I always liked the one where the reason for the accident was I shouldn't have graduated from flight and training.
That's truer than most, yeah. The reasoning was fairly easy for anybody with long experience in aviation.
Well, how long did you
take
do
much.
that, Angus?
Oh, I was doing that up until 5 years ago.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
So that was a life's work then.
Yeah, I was doing that, and also because we were doing this business in London, you go over there, and these guys just don't do one little thing. They're involved in all kinds of risk taking. And one of the guys that hired me for my, I don't know why the hell he wanted me to do it, but he was insuring horses, life insurance for horses. And I know which end of the horse that eats the hay, but that was about it. Anyway, it turned out they were thoroughbred racehorses, and where they were losing was at the track, basically. If a horse strained a leg, they put it down right away. Well, they collect on the policy then. My job was to make sure that they didn't do that. So I was able to retain the services of a retired track veterinarian who still liked to go to the races. And whenever the race would show up at the track, and if a gelding tripped and stretched a tendon or something, he would they would try and they would march it off into the stall there and try and put it down. Yeah. No. Make excellent saddle horses.
We have to stop for a minute.
Okay. So
you thought that if they, even though the horse might not be bad enough to put down, they would just to get the money out.
Oh yeah, they could die to win, same as your own life insurance.
Yeah.
It costs a lot to keep a horse in hay. So, and if it can't win any races, it's a liability. But murdering horses is not a part of the insurance policy. So the horse can be rehabilitated, even if it can't be raced again.
So did you stay in the horse business too, or just?
Yeah, I was in the, among other things I was doing, I was in the horse business for, until that underwriter decided insuring horses was not a good idea.
I gotta go. I'll pick this stuff up tomorrow.
And where are your kids now? Are they still around the house, or are they gone?
Well, my oldest son is 50, so he's on his own. My youngest son got cancer and died about 10 years ago.
Sorry to hear that. My son's got Parkinson's, so I can empathize with you.
Losing one of your kids is a
Tough.
shattering experience.
Yeah. So, following your retirement, then, I mean, do you just when you're doing what you're doing? How do you decide I'm through with the accident investigation?
I never ever gave it up.
So you still doing it now?
No, I retired a few years ago.
No, but I'm just saying, how do you make the decision that I don't want to do this anymore?
Usually you get in a fight with your boss.
Yeah, okay.
I was doing a lot of Lloyd's work, and I liked working for them. We were I got involved in another major area. That same underwriter was insuring contractors. This is all high risk stuff. Contractors are. and they needed somebody to represent them when everybody got sued. Usually subcontractors is what I'm talking about, not the big guys, because they always get sued. And they need somebody to represent them, make sure that and understood building. Well, I was lumber manager of a lumber yard, and I knew, nail and 2x4 and stuff like that. And basically, and I could learn the rest of it. It didn't have to get too technical because we had to hire technical experts. But none of these things ever went to trial anyway, because contractors aren't going to go to trial for contractor versus homeowner. It just doesn't happen. The big bad contractor and the poor homeowner, even though, anyway, that's a political issue. So they never went to trial. So anyway, we'd have to hire experts and lawyers and all that stuff. And it was interesting because I'd have to manage all this stuff besides reporting to London on the status of these things. So I really liked that a lot. Not only did I just do one accident at a time, I was doing hundreds. Responsible for hundreds of them, and making sure things got done and stuff like that. So I like that a lot. The construction defects business is still big in California, I expect. But the office politics is not my best suit.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to have firm ideas and what's right and what's wrong, and that usually doesn't take you all the way.
So the discretion being the better part of valor.
Yeah, I sometimes lose that discretion. Yeah.
You became an unemployed, retired.
Actually, I what happened was the last employer I worked for, they were overwhelmed with claims, and they didn't know how to handle them, and they were doing it wrong. And one of the supervisors that I was supposed to be reporting to got sick, and I tried to get the branch manager and one of the supervisors to approve what I had planned to do. And I was given the option of, in the case that one case was by defense counsel saying, I've got to prepare for trial, and I'm going to spend $20,000 to $25,000 getting prepared to go to trial, or settle for $18,500. What do you want to do? So I didn't have that level of authority, and so I bumped it up to my supervisors. They never responded. So here comes the day that the defense counsel says, what do you want to do? You want me to start preparing for trial? Because once I start, I can't stop. Settle. So they settled, and then the people I was working with got so upset that I saved the underwriters some money by settling. Yeah, it would have been saving money. angry at me to the point where they, I don't know if it was fired or not. I just thought, okay, goodbye, and left. So about 5 days later, I get a call from the manager again. He says, we got a message from London through the American Defense, overall American Defense firm, that's what they would have done, what you did. And so we've made a mistake here. So we want you to come back and work. And so I did. Just to play, kind of really didn't, I don't want to work for people that don't know what they're doing, and are just plain lazy. I don't like that. If you're ignorant and you're willing to learn, that's fine. But if you're just plain lazy, I don't like that.
Understand.
Anyway, so I came back, and so she could keep her job, and I worked there for a couple of months, and then said, I have to retire. I need to take care of my wife and my family, and whatever excuse, I don't remember what I used. But I'm retiring.
Well, you're obviously, your parents are probably either very elderly or gone by now.
Oh yeah.
And so your attachments to Canada through your wife, are there still connections there?
Oh yeah, sure. My family is up there too. My sisters are still living there.
Still have sisters?
And I have cousins and uncles, and my wife has, brothers and sisters and cousins and
So
relatives.
that connection is still very strong.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We go up there every year and have a golf tournament. And
Do they get upset when you show up as a Yank?
no, they mostly want to come down here and visit me.
Okay, well, it's a little warmer where you.
And in fact, my wife's brother comes down here and stays 3 months a year.
Okay. Now, the boy that lived is living.
Yeah,
Where is he now?
he's in the Los Angeles area.
And family?
Yes, he's divorced, but he still maintains a very close relationship with his son because of the school situation.
And his son's, your son and his son's name again?
Angus.
Angus, and the boy is another Angus.
Yes.
Okay. Well, you've had a hell of a life, that's all I can say, Angus. And if you do have something you want to throw in here we didn't talk about, because you've got a great memory and certainly have made it most interesting to talk about. Well, you do end up retiring here into the desert. How long have you been in the desert now?
Retired about 3 years.
In Sun City.
Yeah.
And you are the, would you call it the commanding officer or the
Just president. We don't have.
president of the Veterans Association
Yeah, the Sun City.
for Sun City, which has a membership of
Oh, approximately 380.
380 people,
Yeah.
and which is awfully nice also. You've had a good life, and I want to thank you for coming here and doing this. Dave, we take that section out where you were shot down almost and wounded, and see if we can include that into our library here that's down in the hangar, if you don't mind. Okay.
Sure. All right.
Well, I want to thank you then, and I'm going to shut it down.
Okay.